Hello, fellow followers. Welcome back to the Physical Media Show here on FanZcene Vids. I am Greg, as always, and with me tonight is just Tom of the Midnight Says After Dark, Midnight Says Radio, and he is the 4K master. How you doing, Tom?
Helloers.
Hellowers. I should do that. That'll be my Halloween thing. Hellowers.
I'm doing all right. Getting good grades. My future's so bright. I gotta wear shades. How's everybody doing?
Oh yeah, it's a good song. That speaking of which, that's coming soon. That song's in that movie, My Best Friend's a Vampire. So
That's true.
that's true. Yeah, because he is always wearing them shades. But I'm gonna say hi to the chat real quick, and we'll get things started here. So with us right this evening so far, we have Random Brad Creator with us as always. Glad to have you here. Good vibes back at you. And Justin Film. Hey, I think that's a new name I've seen in the chat here. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. And then we also have Carl's Art Universe. Howdy to you as well. Style Selection, LFG. Yes, let's effing go right now. Let's do it. And then we have Steven, Deleted Scenes, as always, with us. Glad to have you with us as well, Steven, doing the mod thing for us out here. A simple folk, myself, Simple Jack. I can't always speak and function, so it's glad to have you here.
It makes my eyes right.
It makes my eyes just honestly, that made me laugh when I read that comment. I'm not the best speaker in the world.
You've made it when you finally have critics, right?
Exactly. Oh man, it's funny too. I just thought that was funny. What's up, Tim Hayes? Hell to you. And Ace Hanlon, hell to you. Ola, how are you doing? And I said Carl's Art Universe, so I'm trying to make sure. Tyrell72, glad to see you here in the chat. Corleone, chat's jumping on me. Corleone Rogue, how are you? And what's up, Stephen Luther? Glad to have you guys all hanging with us this evening. Yes, and I'm glad to have you here. Glad to have you. Just for anybody in the chat or watching that was wondering, my video I did on censorship is never the answer. I got a comment. Guy called me. Like listening to me was like listening to Simple Jack, and I thought that was funny because in a way I'm not the best speaker, but it is funny to have commenters like that because it means you're reaching a wider audience. Yep. So, yeah,
everybody's a critic now.
Yeah, I seem to have this one dude following me too that keeps telling me that no, people need to stop collecting physical media because it's a waste of plastic. People collect too much plastic.
Oh my God.
I've had this guy comment a couple times.
Me stopping buying them is going to save the planet, Jack.
It's funny too because not only did he leave that comment, I think on 2 of my videos, but I commented on somebody else's physical media video, and he commented the same thing under my name about people.
I think I saw him in our chat earlier tonight, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Jesus Christ. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people's kids.
Let me tell you what, man. I think he's the one that likes to give my videos a downvote. I always get one downvote right off the bat. I think it's him. I think it's
You're
him.
One critic. Yeah. You made it like some bunch is like, fuck him.
Yeah,
give a downvote right away.
Downvote. Buying plastic, destroying the earth.
I'm making a difference.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even throwing it away, so it's not like it's wrapping around a seal's neck or something through the whole of the DVD or the Blu-ray. It's on my shelf in my room, so in my collection room.
Hey, we got Scribe Light in the house. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, what's up, Scribe Light? How you doing? And Alexa Zorbo, and I saw him earlier, and when he said, "Was that Nirvana earlier on your stream when you were singing?"
Right.
Yeah. So how are you this evening, guys? But yeah, no runner tonight. He's working the late shift tonight. He has to close up, so he will not be here tonight. So you guys get me and Tom this evening, and let's go over a little bit of what's coming soon.
All right. I suppose you want me to share the.
I mean, you can, or we can just talk about what we like.
It's not that long. This is one of the shortest ones ever.
Okay. But
Like
yeah,
I do
well,
more just talking than actual titles.
yeah.
And I apologize for those who have seen it on the channel. The audio is horrible. I fucked up on it. And I didn't save it. So there wasn't going, and I ain't redoing the whole damn thing. So
I don't blame you, man.
it
That's what
ain't
I
worth
said.
it for a week, right?
You're right. There you go.
Welcome to your 4K4U news and rumors for the week of June 7th, 2023. In announcements, Ferris Bueller's Day Off will be 8/1/23. That's right, August 1st for 2023. Ferris Bueller will hit 4K in a Steelbook and Standard Edition. Duel will be coming in a Special Edition. Now, this is the UK zombie version, but I'm assuming over here in the US that Groove will be doing this version, as I had said before, but we will have to wait and see yet. The date on that for the UK is September 18th. Matilda is coming to a 4K Steelbook on the 5th of September from Sony. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be hitting 4K on the 1st of August from Disney. Speaking of August 1st, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse comes out on 4K. Here's a look at the possible Best Buy Steelbook. Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars will be hitting a Blu-ray 2 CD package from Rhino and Parlophone in the UK on August 11th. Kino Lorber has announced that North Dallas 40 will be coming to 4K Blu-ray sometime later this year. Enter the Dragon will be coming out on the 12th of September. That is the standalone edition, as you see here from Warner Brothers. The Nike Air film, starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, will be hitting Blu-ray on September 12th, 2023 from Universal. Ghoulies is coming to 4K, finally, from MVD on September 12th. That same day, you can expect Ghoulies 2 on standard Blu-ray. We were unable to find the sources needed for a 4K release, but they hope to have more on that at a later date. We got a couple of rumors for you. First off, the Monster Squad is coming to 4K, probably through Vestron and Lionsgate. Rosemary's Baby is also rumored for 4K later this year. I'm not surprised. I believe that's already been on 4K on streaming for a while. And The Nightmare Before Christmas is rumored for 4K from Disney in August. That's your news and rumors. See you on the show.
And there you have, there you have that. The news and rumors. Some good titles come there. I know we're all for Ghoulies 4K, and Monster Squad 4K, Duel. I'm looking forward to that 4K. So a lot of good titles there, and a lot of good, nostalgic titles that I'm looking forward to getting. Yes. So, but as far as your question, Brian Berth, why would people want to censor movies? It's sort of like we talked about earlier. Save their jobs. They don't want to risk offending people, so they just basically are trying to retroactively save their jobs or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's that, and also it's to make themselves relevant.
That too.
Because they don't have a job if they don't have something to fucking complain about.
Exactly. This thing offends me.
Yeah. We're going to get into that, though, I think, a little deeper here.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah. It's called Air because it completely left.
Actually, I liked it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it was good.
It's like my second favorite movie of the year so far.
Nice, yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to Enter the Dragon too. I want to get that. Hopefully Warner Brothers does a good scan on that, which I know you have some talk on that tonight about Warner Brothers. So with all that being said, if you're ready, we can go ahead and get into the showcasing the physical media side of the show, or if you have anything else to say beforehand.
Nah, I think I'm good.
All right, well, what's your first pick of the night?
Oh, put me on the spot here.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, considering the news, I decided to watch The French Connection the other night because I do happen to have the Blu-ray here, as you see, completely unedited, just like the old DVD in this nice 5-star collection from. I miss these. You remember these?
Yeah, I remember those.
Nice 2-disc sets.
Mm-hmm.
Because another reason I kept it is there's like 1 or 2 things on here that are not on here. Go figure.
Yeah.
But so The French Connection is a classic. It's a 5 Oscars when it came out.
Yeah.
And the video you were referring to is talking just about that very thing, where Criterion streaming version and I guess Vudu and Amazon and a few others have been Edited.
Edited. They say some words that are not socially acceptable. And that's just dumb. It's just so dumb.
Popeye Doyle's here. Step away from the bar and get up against the wall.
It's a good
Pick
movie.
your feet, didn't you? Picked your feet in Poughkeepsie. Sat on the edge of the bed and you picked your feet.
What car chase scenes are better? The French Connections or oh my god, I just slipped my mind.
Bullet?
Yes, Bullet.
French Connection, because French Connection is more real.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. Well, I know and heard. So that's what I say. I always thought like the Bullet was the more spectacle and the French Connection was the more realistic.
Well, and the fact that Gene Hackman almost died.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because they were filming it and they had certain parts of the town sectioned off, but they couldn't get everything done right. And they're just like, fuck it, we're just going to shoot it. And they didn't account for people getting up for work and leaving down the streets they already kind of had, sectioned off or whatever.
Mm.
And some guy got in his car not knowing they were filming and just happened to sideswipe Gene Hackman when he was driving in one of the shots and damn near killed him. Totaled the car. They went through, I think, 3 or 4 cars just to shoot that whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, and Ed O'Neill did play Popeye in a TV version of. You know what's weird is the real guy looks just like Brian Dennehy, yet Brian Dennehy never played Popeye Doyle. It's like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
Like,
truly.
I just don't get it, because the real guy's in the movie. He's the other cop that asks, he's still picking your feet in Poughkeepsie to Popeye. As to be a joke, his superior or whatever. Yeah. That's the real guy. And then the other one, I can't remember, but the other guy who plays Cloudy, he's in a bunch of it too. But yeah, no, the movie is great. It's amazing. It's a decent transfer. As usual, William Friedkin oversaw this one when it came out back in the day. It's got a bunch of new special features on it. Like I said, sadly, it's missing a couple things from the DVD, but not everything. Just like, I think like 2 things overall. And one of it's kind of like a trade-off. Because what it is it's like the old DVD has like him going through the deleted scenes, and they have the deleted scenes here, but it's like commentary. So I don't know if it's brand new commentary or they just took the audio from that version on the old DVD or what, but that's not on here. And one of the other making of documentaries isn't on here for some reason on the Blu-ray. But other than that, there's a bunch of new stuff they added, plus one of the major documentaries and all the commentaries and stuff are carried over. So. And
cool.
The French Connection is also, it's been censored pretty much everywhere anybody's checked at this point.
Everywhere. And it's, I mean, even in when they screen it in theaters now, it's been censored. So yippee. Yeah, and it's pretty funny because the Blu-ray copy.
Disney.
Yeah, Duck Disney. The Blu-ray copy you have there is going for outrageous amounts of money right now.
It is. Yeah, some of the higher prices we've seen so far is $350.
Yeah,
and I didn't even know this had a slip cover when it first came out, but I guess it did. And this is part of a line, because they did this, an Oliver Stone one for, I think, or not Oliver Stone, or maybe they did do one with Oliver Stone. They did one with Danny DeVito for Hoffa, and I've seen a couple other ones like this too, where they've got like the signature collection thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the only time it was released on Blu-ray anyway.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think that, seriously, it is really crazy to think that if Disney decides they want to put this out, it could be the edited version on a new Blu-ray or a 4K.
Which would be
crazy. It could be. Yeah, it would be crazy. But I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, and I got to imagine it might have already been scanned because, we've talked about it. It does seem to be that like a lot of these directors do a lot of their films at the same time. Mm-hmm. And Friedkin's had most of his films scanned in 4K, so. And we got Exorcist coming later this year.
Exactly. I was just about to bring up, we got Exorcist coming. It's like you've always said, like it seems like when they find a director, they get the director, sit him down and do a bunch of his films, and then we get a slew of that.
Yeah. Because we even had the one where I can't remember the guys, Bob Clark, we've done all his now. It seems like Porky's is the last one left. Mm-hmm. There's a few other ones. Spielberg's got most of his out now. George did all his at the same time. Coppola supposedly did all his at the same time, and then redid a couple of them.
It's true.
So it'll be interesting to see going forward what we get. But I have a feeling we're going to see this movie in 4K soon. But like you, this is the first time I've ever been kind of worried about this. I'm like, I don't think William Friedkin would let it happen.
Yeah, I would say he's going to have to eventually step in and be like, no. I mean, I can see it's like one thing for the streaming for them to do it to streaming, but like if you're going to release it on physical, he's going. Knowing William Friedkin, he's going to have to. He's going to have to say something.
Well, we know how he reacts to things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've
I
actually.
love William Friedkin. He is hilarious.
Yes.
Fuck him and fuck Alexander.
I mean, he's actually left real Amazon reviews saying like, "Don't buy this Blu-ray. It's not the full scan of the movie."
Has he really?
Yeah, I've actually had to.
Or which one?
I had it, but I can't. I don't know where I put it. I had it saved, the image saved, but I don't know where I saved the image. But yeah, it was a really freaking. Yeah, I have to find it again. But yeah, it was like an Amazon or a Letterbox or something like that.
Yeah, he's a pistol, yeah. So I can't wait to hear what he's got to say about it.
It was about this movie, Sorcerer. It was about Sorcerer. Yeah, he said, "Don't buy this DVD. The new scan's coming soon." Yeah, so yeah.
Well, see, maybe that's the thing is he's been doing all of his scans, so he would know.
Yeah, he would.
But yeah, no, I mean, I swear he'd be like, "It's been in the fucking movie for 50 years. Put it back."
Exactly.
That's not exactly what he'd say.
I would believe that. I would believe that. But it is a good movie.
He'd be like, "Who the fuck are you protecting?"
Exactly.
We were joking about this on 4K for you. That's what's next. This film has been edited for content and sensitivity.
Mm-hmm. They sort of already did that with Gone with the Wind at the beginning with the about this So I don't know who would win, Bob Iger or William.
Oh wow, we actually have another story about this. This is a brand new. William Friedkin would kick his ass.
Oh yeah,
90 years old.
Definitely.
He's 90 years old and he'd still kick his ass.
What do we have here?
We had a new write-up about it from Decider. This is a new one. I haven't seen this one yet. Did Disney censor the French Connection? Film fans furious about missing racial slur scene. Classic film fans are up in arms this week over the apparent censorship of the acclaimed 1971 crime thriller The French Connection on digital platforms, including the version currently streaming on the Criterion Channel, the independent streaming service dedicated to classic films. On Tuesday, film nerds started buzzing about the revelation following blog posts from Jeffrey Wells on Hollywood Elsewhere. Yep, that's where we first heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
An often controversial film enthusiast who has come under fire in the past for inflammatory and offensive. Who gives a shit? What has that got to do with this?
See, that's what they like. They want to say, "Oh, so you want this slur back in there? You're racist."
That's what I think this is being set up for. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, Wells pointed out that the version of The French Connection streaming on the Criterion Channel omits the sequence in which Gene Hackman's character, Detective Popeye Doyle, uses a racial slur, actually uses two of them, after his partner has been stabbed by a black character. It shows you where their sensitivity lies, too, there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't give a shit about the other one, just the one.
Yeah,
you can read the uncensored scene via the French Connection script, which is... Just watch the fucking movie.
Exactly.
It's on YouTube. I played it and didn't get flagged, so believe it or not, which is funny. After Roy Scheider's character, Detective Russo is stabbed by a character. Listed as a script as Black Pusher. Of course it is, played by actor Alan Weeks. Russo says, "How'd I know you had a knife?" To which Doyle replies, "Never trust a racial..." Well, you forgot the first part where he goes, "You dumb..."
Yeah, Italian racial slur.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, just
it's so dumb. It is so dumb.
I don't know which version Drew was verifying here.
It's crazy to think that. That's what it's like we said. The Brian Barty, it's about the obsession with censorship. It's the whole this over you. Just eventually get to the point, say, well, if you like this in this movie, you're this type, you're this, and this, and then that way they get their jobs, and it's getting ridiculous.
And here's the other thing too, is like, because this is where I was talking about that earlier, where Paul Chatta was saying, let's not get lost in the weeds here about this whole thing. What this is really about is at the end of the day, people need to find things to complain about or fix so that they still have employment because of all these DEI people. That's what this is all about, and ESG stuff and whatnot. If you're curious about that, check out our videos at Midnight's Edge. Otherwise, it's probably not even anything you're that worried about. But Sam Adams here is saying exactly what I figure. This is going to make eventually the other side is going to start losing their mind too. Because at the risk of being like, no, my precious N-word, the uncensored French Connection should be the only one in circulation, whether on TV or in theaters. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Friedkin knew exactly what having his detective protagonist use it said about him. Exactly. And I think that's what
Mhm.
Friedkin will turn around and say. He's like, the guy was like a hard-boiled New York cop, and he hated everybody.
Yeah.
And yes, he was known to use racial slurs.
Mhm.
And it was not uncommon back then.
It's yeah.
It's
I mean,
sanitizing this horrible character, right? I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, he's not a bad guy per se, but he's not a good guy, right? Like,
exactly.
I mean, the whole point of him shooting the guy in the back, like, that was a big protest among the actual people involved with the situation and everything else, but it ended up being one of the more memorable scenes in the movie. You're going to cut that out too?
Give it time.
Right?
Give it time.
Oh,
Right?
he's a cop and he shoots him in the back. Well, don't you want cops to be shown in this light? That's where I was going to get to. Is like,
Yeah.
this
The other
like
side.
makes them blow their little fucking minds because they don't understand, they can't comprehend. It's like on one side you got the N-word, on the other side
Yeah.
you got a movie that's actually portraying a cop as kind of a racist jerk who is willing to shoot somebody who's unarmed in the back.
Exactly. Oh, that would that wouldn't surprise me. What is this? They'll change the Bruce Willis sign in Die Hard 3.
Right?
Wouldn't surprise me. Disney owns it now. Disney owns that. So
that's probably why they haven't done the 4Ks.
it could be very well be.
Because the versions that are in 4K on streaming right now are friggin' horrible. They are horrible. I haven't gone back to my original Blu-ray to check, but I'm assuming it probably looks the same. There is no way that those came from the negatives because they look like crap.
It's got to be horrible. I mean,
again, I haven't checked Die Hard 1 again, but yeah, I went and tried to watch Die Hard 2 around Christmas time, and I'm like, my Blu-ray looks better.
So that had to have been Disney's doing, making that scan.
I think it's an older scan. I don't think they ever scan the negatives for those. They just scanned them, like would be the interpositive or whatever.
Yeah, I know they do change it for the TV cut of the film. I know they do that, and I guess that's very understandable, especially when everybody's sitting at the home. But still, at the end of the day,
what's funny is they didn't even really start censoring that word on television until like the 90s.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. The version of the French Connection I probably saw as a kid had to be the television cut, and it probably had that word in it. I guarantee it. Both of them.
Probably, yeah.
Because Bunker would say stuff like that all the time too.
I know, and people love.
And I'm not condoning it, but it's like, dude, it's a movie. It's a character, right? Sure, it's based on a true story, and guess what? It's kind of what they talked like.
Yeah, that's how they were. I mean, and it's the artistic integrity that we're trying to see here, right? You know, the one side has always been about artistic integrity, and now they're changing the artistic integrity of these things. It's just, it's ridiculous.
Friedkin followed these guys around for like a month. Participated in busts and everything. So did Gene Hackman. At the time, Gene Hackman had a hard time with this stuff.
Nobody ever said it was it was acceptable. It's
him and Friedkin butt headed all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to say a lot of this, or he didn't want to do this. He's like, I'm being too rough. He didn't want to say the N-word. He didn't want to shoot the dude in the back. You know, all that kind of, like, he did not like that stuff, but he's like, that doesn't matter. This is how the character is. And if you don't like it, tough shit. You know, I mean, Friedkin was just one of those kind of guys. He knew what he wanted and he wasn't going to compromise. He was like, I was hired to do a job and I'm going to do that job. You know, and his whole thing was to try and tell the French Connection, tell all the things that did happen, maybe embellish it a little bit and amalgamize, but at the end of the day, he did not want to be disingenuous in any way, shape, or form, because the reason he was hired was because of his, documentary background, and his style lent itself to the real grittiness of what New York was like at the time. especially for a cop like that. And then, it just moved on through his, The Exorcist and such later on. I mean, the scarier scenes in The Exorcist aren't when her head's twisting around and she's spitting up the pea soup. Anybody will tell you that. That's not the shit that's scary.
Yeah, that's no.
The scariest shit in The Exorcist, especially for a parent, is that scene where they're putting her through all those tests, and the way Friedkin make the noises so loud and just jarring, and her wincing and screaming and dealing with being poked and prodded, and the mother just standing there with the worst fear in her life. Because that's the thing with a parent, is when you don't know, when you have no fucking clue what's wrong with your kid, and doctors are trying everything in their power to figure it out. That is the scariest part of The Exorcist, not the actual exorcism or once you know she's possessed, well, now you have an answer.
Yeah.
Well, before that, it's like, does she got cancer? Is it something else? Is it, they even say there may be a lesion on her brain. They try to come up with good explanations. And, I'm not trying to get, pedantic here or lost in the minutia of it all. But the point is that it's those moments that make it feel more real. And it's the same thing with that kind of a thing with the French Connection. The fact that Popeye Doyle would use those kind of words, the real guy he's based on would. Cops at that time would talk that way. It's set, actually, it doesn't really say when it's set. The actual case took place in the 60s. But the movie came out in 1971. I mean, the movie's 50 plus years old.
Right. It's just retroactively trying to change things that don't need to be changed. And
honestly, I wonder if they weren't getting it ready for the 50th anniversary release, and then Disney saw this and they freaked the fuck out.
That could have been a possibility why it happened all of a sudden. So
it's like, how did it even get on their radar? How did this movie not get a 50th anniversary release? This is a big Oscar winner. It's not like it just won one minor Oscar.
Yeah,
it won Best Picture, Best Director, Gene Hackman. I believe it was Best Screenplay or what adapted. Let me see here.
It's like one of the most culturally impactful movies of that time.
One of them, yes. It's one of the films that saved Hollywood. When I talk about The Exorcist and all these other movies that saved Hollywood, this was one of the first steps.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of like Dirty Harry. Let's see here. Cinematography, director, film editing, Best Picture, and sound, and adapted screenplay. An actor for Gene Hackman. And supporting actor for Roy Scheider. Or he got nominated, but he didn't win. So that was just a nomination. Okay, but it did win for Hackman, did win for Friedkin, won editing, won sound, and won best screenplay and picture. And there's still people who say to this day that the soundtrack got robbed of a best, because it didn't even get nominated for best soundtrack or best film score.
Right.
Because there's a whole thing I could get into about that film score too, because the guy who did it, I just had his name in my head and it just went out of my brain.
It happens to me all
Don
the time.
Ellis, Jesus Christ. he had a special trumpet made for himself because he was traveling in this idea of finding the notes between notes. So he was literally doing like a score, and he does the same thing with his Exorcist score or whatever that didn't get used, a lot of it, but some of it you do hear in the movie. And it is a very unsettling score because none of it is actual notes. It's not minors or sharps or anything like, or majors. It's all between the note. It's really weird sounding, mixed with like a jazz piano. So like it messes with your fucking brain. And it does in a way that it becomes memorable despite it not even really sounding like music the first time you hear it. Because the first time it's so jarring, and the movie starts with it. It's that big, this loud noise in your ear, and you're just like, whoa. And you come to realize that when I heard about what he did to write the score, it's like, okay, that makes sense now. Because it sounds not otherworldly, but just, like I said, unsettling. Because you're not your ear's trying to find a normal place, and then when you start hearing the piano parts, it goes to that, and the music itself is driving with the beat. There's no straight up like beat all the time. It's just a very avant-garde score for that time, and does not get enough credit, I don't think. But anyway, moving on. Yes. French Connection is a movie that everybody should have in their collection, and unfortunately, right now, I'm sure the DVDs aren't much cheaper either. Although this DVD is a very old DVD. I did pop it in just to see how it looked. It don't look too bad for a DVD.
Don't look bad.
Not totally bad. I mean, that's the thing. Some of these THX certified DVDs look pretty good as long as they're anamorphic. They generally did go by the highest standards. That usually meant they had the highest bit rate. And Friedkin was generally a nut about making movies look good for the format, which we'll get into a little bit more here a little later. But yeah, let's see what you got.
All right, I'll go with mine. From one all-time classic film, French Connection, to an equally classic.
The way you say it makes me think you're full of shit.
Yeah, Captain Ron.
Debbie Does Dallas.
Debbie does. One day that will be on here. But I get Captain Ron here. I hadn't watched it in a very long time.
Yeah.
This is only still available on DVD, folks. Only still available on DVD. No Blu-ray. It's just a fun classic movie from the 90s that I remember, just watching with my family and stuff. I've really enjoyed it. And yes, this is also owned by Disney, which I am surprised. And I think that I don't know if we'll ever get a Blu-ray of it, because I talked to you a little bit earlier about it, because this movie is early 90s. It earns its PG-13 rating. The mom in the movie literally shows her boobs in the shower with, Martin Short when they're taking a shower, nipple and all, PG-13. The young kid is about 10, 11 years old. He drinks beer and he plays strip poker with a hooker. And then, of course, we got Kurt Russell, like I mentioned earlier, wearing a banana hammock, showing it, letting it all hang out. And all kinds of things happen. It's just a fun movie from the 90s. And Martin Short is great. It's funny. Not much I can talk about on this after going after the French Connection and all that stuff. So, but yeah, there probably will never be a Blu-ray of this anytime soon, but it is available on streaming. It is available on digital and HD. We checked earlier. So if you guys want to check that out, you can do it that way. But it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. Kurt Russell is awesome in this. Martin Short is hilarious. Their family gets a boat, and Short wants to take his family sort of on a trip. So they're going to take the boat from where it is on the island and sell it to Miami and sell the boat. But then they love hanging out with Captain Ron. They get into these adventures, and then they decide to stay on the boat pretty much permanently. So that's the movie, Captain Ron. Nothing special, nothing spectacular, but get used to that because that's where I'm headed tonight. Yeah. I still need to get Munchies, and I have to get it quick because it's on that Munchies with the Munchie, and it's got an extra extended cut. And I got to get that before that Shout Factory double thing goes out, OOP, because once that happens, those things shoot through the roof in price, and I just cannot afford when they go like that.
And last I knew, Shout controls a lot of the Corman films, so yeah, they're not gonna put it out unless they're good and ready to. Hey, we got Rookie Critic in the chat.
Rookie's here. There he is. What's up, Rookie? Hey. I
haven't seen Captain Ron since it came out initially. Believe it or not. I liked it at the time. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those. I can't. Maybe I had the VHS, but I can't remember.
It's one of those movies. It's just.
I think that was one that Disney put out about the same time. They had a set of VHS movies that they put out where you could get them for like $9.99 or $14.99 at like Walmart or wherever. Where it had like Encino Man. I think it was Captain Ron. What About Bob? It was like their comedies at the time. Stuff like that, like a handful of them. I think I bought them all at that time. So I swear I remember having it. Because I remember they had the little taggy proof of purchase thing, that annoying thing that was always hanging off the bottom.
Oh, yeah, the bottom of them.
I'm trying to remember the other ones, like The Big Green or something like that, maybe, or one of those movies.
Oh, yeah, with the soccer, The Big Green, it could be.
Yeah, I think it was one of those or something or other. Yeah, they were all some of their modern comedies. I think Son-in-Law was part of that, too, if I remember right.
Which is funny because, none of those have Blu-rays, really.
I know those were big hits back in the day, though. But
it's typical Disney crap. That's
even Encino Man. I can't understand. Like, you think they'd be rushing to get Encino Man out on Blu-ray after Brendan Fraser's had his new resurgence?
You would think it's and Ki Hu Kwan is in it too. So
I know, I keep forgetting that. You're right.
yeah, you would
He's
think.
kind of like a side character, but like, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like they can market that. Like I seen somebody say, "I want a 4K of Encino Man, and I want it to look all uppity and prestigious, saying Oscar winners Brendan Fraser and Ki Hu Kwan star in Encino Man." So yeah,
In Razzie Award winning Pauly Shore.
Pauly Shore. I'm the Weasel.
I don't think didn't Sean Astin ever get nominated for Lord of the Rings or no?
I don't know. Did he get nominated for an
I'm
Oscar?
not sure. So because it'd be like, Oscar winning actors Brendan Fraser, Ki Hu Kwan, Oscar nominated Sean Astin, and Razzie winner Pauly Shore, 10-time Razzie winner Pauly Shore.
I think Sean Astin has been nominated, but maybe not for Lord of the Rings. I think
thought
it was for like a short film or something.
Maybe, but I could have swore it was for. He did maybe once for Samwise, but I could be wrong.
He could be.
No, I wish I'd seen it recent years so I could really kind of talk about it. I very vaguely remember the movie. I just remember that, Kurt Russell plays like this beer swilling captain or whatever, and Martin Short's like who rents the boat and the thing for a cruise or whatever for his family, and it's kind of just kind of one of those kind of comedies like What About Bob they kind of had at that time period.
Yeah,
that, the annoying lead guy with the uppity, odd couple kind of.
Yeah, kind of like the Steve Steve Martin, kind of like Steve Martin type and John Candy stuff like that and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's like everybody. Yeah,
Dan Aykroyd and John Candy, whoever.
Yeah.
But you always have your annoying character and your more down to earth character, straight kind of character.
Yeah, because everybody
it was decent.
Yeah, everybody falls in love with Captain Ron, and Martin Short hates him because he wants to be the man. He wants to be the man that his son looks up to. He wants to be the man up for his wife and just stuff like that. And it's a fun movie, and it earns its PG-13. Like I said, I forgot some of the stuff that was. I think
that's a Touchstone or a Hollywood Picture. That's what I was going to say because that's what the one.
Touchstone.
Yeah, that was what they all were. Those ones, and I think even Baby Secret of the Lost Legend was another one that was part of that deal. Now that I think about it. Because they were some of their more adult hits, so I don't think it was the Big Green in there. There was something else like that, though. I'm trying to think of what it was.
But I don't know. But it is funny, and it's almost kind of like if Snake Plissken was a surfer. That's pretty much who he plays in that. If he was a surfer,
well, this wasn't too long before he did Escape from L.A., is it?
When was Escape from L.A.? Like 97,
97?
Right? This was, I believe, 92. This was.
Oh, yeah. So that was a little bit before, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all those movies were in that 91, 92, 93 range that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if it was the 80s, it'd probably be PG. It'd be PG. You're not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all.
That is kind of when the first kind of wave of the change of because real quick, for PG-13 people who don't know how this happened, PG-13 came along in 1984 after Gremlins and Temple of the Doom were a little bit too hardcore for PG, according to parents. So Spielberg lobbied to make a PG-14 type rating, and they came up with PG-13. And since then, at that point, you could have the F word as long as it wasn't in a sexual connotation. You could get away with tits as long as it wasn't in a sexual connotation. Mm-hmm. You could get away with just about everything but drug use and major gore, basically. Beheadings, bloodletting, that kind of a thing. But you could get away with quite a bit still in a PG-13. Violence is one of the things they were really kind of more so, a little bit more, worried about them. But then they kind of switched. It was like they stopped worrying so much about the violence, and you could do everything up to and but, blow somebody's head literally off or chop somebody's head literally off. But you could kill thousands of people on screen and get a PG-13 just as long as you didn't show a tit or say the F word. It's gotten so bad now. That's kind of where we're at.
Pretty much. It's pretty much where we're at completely with that. It's crazy.
The MPAA seems to be more worried about like up close and personal shit too, as far as that goes.
Yeah. It's amazing who can though. Honestly, it is amazing who can get away with certain stuff with the MPAA with their PG-13
Let me put it to you this way,
and other people can't.
Yeah, like Rambo First Blood Part 2 in the first movie would probably be PG-13 now. Except for I think there might be one or two F words in the first movie. I don't think there's any in the second movie. Right. But something like you even have like a great example is Police Academy 2. where they managed to pretty much do what they did in the first movie, but they got away with it being PG-13. That was because that first movie was barely an R rating.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of tits and a couple F words.
Yeah.
They managed to pull the same shit off in part 2 with a PG-13.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm really surprised.
Now though, no fucking way.
No way. That's what I was like. I was really surprised with Captain Ron.
Actually, I think there's more tits in part 2. Actually, because there might be more in part 1, but I think they're on screen longer in part 2. It's kind of hard to, you got to calculate the tit to screen ratio.
But we got a $5 super chat here from the Rookie Critic. Says, if you want a fill-in for the youngster slot, I could play the role. LOL, I'm just listening and editing a video about the scene.
If you got a movie or two you want to talk about, come on. That's up to
Greg.
More than welcome. You're more than welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, you are very welcome. If you got some movies or whatever you want to share. I know last time you shared one movie, dipped out, never came back. But I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link if you want, Rookie. Go ahead.
Oh, is it my turn for number 2?
Yeah.
Well, this was odd because I was watching The French Connection. And I could have swore I had the second one on DVD as well, since I still had the first one. Why wouldn't I? But evidently either somebody stole it or sold it at some point for some dumb reason. And I managed to order this from Amazon, and it came rather quickly. So I was able to watch it, and I can't believe I would have gave it away, because I actually enjoy this film quite a bit. So I was like, what the hell happened to my other copy? But this actually has some new features on it, because I don't remember the original version having much for special features on it. No, it's a really nice transfer for the most part. This one, of course, was not directed by Friedkin. It was directed by John Frankenheimer. But it equally is decent. The only thing it's really missing, it feels like, is Roy Scheider. But if you go with the real story, this is kind of what happened here. The only thing it takes any real blatant liberties with is the very, very end of the film, which I'm not going to spoil for anybody, because it does have kind of a shocking kind of ish ending like the first film. But no, really good film overall. Of course, for those who don't know what it's about, is spoilers for the end of the first movie. The main guy gets away like he did in real life. And in real life, the guy who Popeye Doyle's based on went to France to try and catch the guy. And that's what this story's about. So yeah, it's a decent sequel. Hackman does a great job in it. And, it really goes I don't know. I'd have to do some research. I don't know if some of the shit that happened in this movie exactly happened the way it did, obviously, because it gets pretty dark midway through the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I don't think I've actually seen the sequel, no.
Okay, because it kicks off. He's in France, so like he goes right to France, and he's there. He's like, I'm here to catch this guy. This is what I'm going to do. He keeps running into bullshit with the French, cops and stuff. But there's one cop who does seemingly really want to help him, but of course he's running into his own issues. And as in real life, they found out what it was this guy was being protected because he was a war hero. And so basically they wouldn't, not only would they not extradite him or whatever, but they wouldn't even arrest him.
Really?
Even though they knew he was dirty as fuck. Because for those who don't know, famously, the first movie is based on the biggest heroin bust in history.
Mm-hmm.
And it was part of like 3 or 4 shipments, and this guy was behind it all. And that was the thing, is that like everybody in France knew about it, but nobody did shit. But there was also kind of like how smuggling was seen differently over there. Like it would be like a normal job for a lot of people, I guess, over there. They didn't see it as taboo as it was here in the US. So they don't really get to that so much in the movie. They talk a little bit about that in the making of it, but it's just, or maybe it was in the first one, I can't remember which, but it's an excellent sequel for the time. Well directed, well paced. It's actually a little bit longer than the first movie, but it has a very satisfying and shocking ending at the same time. So yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Why? Because I think there was still more story to tell. I think just the fact that Doyle's counterpart actually went to France to try and catch this motherfucker.
Yeah,
is a story in and of itself. Like that's the whole thing.
He was determined, and he was going to get that guy. Yeah. But yeah, I it's one I have not actually seen. I have not seen the sequel, so I have to. Hopefully, that'll stay available
Well, then I
to
don't want to. Yeah,
purchase.
I don't want to give away too much. I mean, I don't think there's any. I mean, he keeps.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets kind of pissy with the French guys a lot, but he doesn't really say anything too demeaning. I mean, he still refers to the main guy as Frog One, which is kind of the closest, I guess, you'd get to a derogatory term for a French person. But yeah, so other than that, I don't really see why they would have to, other than because there's only one scene where it gets remotely close to anything racist, and I don't want to spoil it because there's a lot of stuff I don't want to spoil if you've never seen it.
Yeah, I've done.
Is it as great as the original? No, but it's a very good follow-up. Especially at the time, not well known for good sequels, right? Like the 70s are not well known for a lot of great sequels. Outside of The Godfather, too, right?
Right.
So, in that respect, it's probably one of the better sequels of the 70s.
Cool. That's cool. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because I've not seen it. So that one you guys could probably get ahead right now without worrying.
I just got it on Amazon this last week for $14.99. So
there you go. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's cheap enough, and you got extra features on here. It's kind of worth it.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
It's definitely, I mean, even though I couldn't find my DVD, which I don't even think the DVD had any special features on it whatsoever, I'd have to go look. I think it just had a trailer. So, and there you go. That's my second pick.
So, good one. Once again, I wish I could have talked about that one, but
well, and I could talk more about it, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody because I know it isn't as well known as the first. And
and
it does have some interesting twists and turns in it.
Yeah, and there was some people on the chat that had not seen it as well. So I guess that's a smart move, just in case. Hopefully the rookie will be joining us soon, but I'll go ahead and start with mine. Another DVD, because once again, this is another movie that's only on DVD, and you'll see a theme here, and that would be Summer Rental with John Candy. And this is Paramount though, so I don't know why Paramount has never put this on Blu-ray. So this one
wasn't that one rumored to be coming soon to some.
I think I heard maybe something about it.
I remember a while ago we were talking about it coming eventually, and maybe at least to Blu-ray anyway.
Yeah, I think I heard some. I think I did. I could have sworn one of them. Either Dawn of the Disc.
You would think that's one of the more well-known Candy movies.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's not as upper like Uncle Buck type shit, but it is one of his more well-known ones. That was on HBO every 10 minutes back when it first came out.
Exactly. That's why I remember seeing it on TV all the time.
And it was funny because I'd always come in the scene, the sunburn scene, every single fucking time for some reason.
Exactly. And he stays like sunburnt for half the movie.
Yeah, I know.
It's
but
hilarious.
Everything before that I barely remember, but like after that I remember most of the movie. I've seen that last half of the movie quite a few times.
Yeah, it's one of those things like when I first saw it myself, all the way through, is like I did not realize that there's a whole nother part of the movie where they go to the wrong house in the beginning of the film.
Oh shit! I forgot all about that. See,
yeah. It's they
kind of vaguely, but like, yeah, it's been 20, 30 years since I've seen the movie as is, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like because when I first saw the movie all the way through, because like you, I usually catch it when they're at the one house and like everybody using his house, and the one chick wants him to fill her breast and he gets sunburned and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It starts off with, he's an air traffic controller and they force him to take a vacation and he doesn't want to take it. So they take a vacation and they get the address where the house they rented wrong. So they stay at this like real rich, fancy house for like 2 days. And then the family shows up and like, no, this is our house. You got the wrong address. And they go get the shitty house. And that's where it usually picks up where he's got the sunburn and all that. So that's where most of us remember it from. But it is a funny movie. It is John Candy is brilliant as the everyman dad as always, and it's got a great cast to it. Richard Crenna plays an amazing asshole in the movie.
Torn's in it too.
Yeah, Rip Torn. He's the pirate guy with a hook who runs the Barnacle restaurant that they turn into the boat that they sell.
No, Rip
What's up?
Torn's great. I love Rip
Yeah,
Torn.
he's great. He's great in that movie too.
He
What's up,
always pops
rookie?
up oddly and shit. That it's just like when I was watching that. Oh yeah, hi rookie, you're
Yeah.
here.
What's up,
But
guys?
go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah, it was like watching that David Bowie movie, and he's in that shit too. He's
Yeah.
really young. It took me a minute to figure out who the fuck he was. I'm like, I know that face and I know that voice, but he isn't down here like this yet because he's young.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know, he sounds like a regular dude, and he looks kind of like he's thin and slender and young. And you're just like, who the fuck is that? I know who that is. And then I look at the case again, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Rip Torn. It's like, to me, Rip Torn was just always that guy. You know, like, you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Like, and the guy from Men in Black, the guy from Men in Black, and you know all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And he's great in Summer Rental. He really is. It's like I said, it's such a great cast. He plays like the captain, the pirate barn of the restaurant, who wants to help John Candy learn to sail and get back. And like I said, Richard Crenna plays an amazing asshole in the movie. The rich, sophisticated guy who hates all the summer rental people who come to town. You know, he owns the town. He hates them all, and he wins the sailboat competition every year. So it's just a great, funny movie. So yeah. I'm sure, Rook, you probably never seen it, much like Runner.
Which film?
Summer Rental with John Candy.
Oh, no.
That's what I figured.
See, that's why I'm here, to fill in the runner role, of course.
Just so everybody out there in the chat knows and is watching, this is basically who Runner was before Runner joined our show.
And then you forced him to watch good things now.
Exactly. He is a rookie here. But yeah, I sort of got on a little thing this week to watch some like older summer movie. It's summertime, you know. I wanted to watch some older summer movies I haven't seen in years, and I did watch a few digital movies, but that's because those movies will be on DVD and Blu-ray. So you know, I watched Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, and Subspecies 5, The Blood Rise, which were great movies, and I will be adding them to my Blu-ray collection. That's why I'm cool with that. So, but I did watch
the Robert Englund movie. I didn't get to watch your review yet.
It is
just your quick review.
I'll give you a quick rundown real quick before you get to your Rook so you can talk. It is really good and fascinating, and it was a lot more emotional than I expected it to be. And I learned so much about Robert Englund that I'm sure maybe you know some of it, but like, did you know the line in Tarantino movies, "My name is Buck and I'm here to
fuck"? Yep.
Fuck. That's from Robert Englund.
Yep. Tarantino brought that up.
Yeah. And he actually, Robert Englund he actually auditioned for that role with Quentin Tarantino. He talked to him. He came in, he auditioned, he did it in front of Tarantino. He talked to Tarantino, and he didn't get the role. So
I think if I had to take a guess why, it's probably because at that point Tarantino was just a little too old to probably believe that he was like a, you know, like a caretaker at a facility like that.
Maybe.
Just a guess and a hunch. I don't know. He doesn't talk about that part in his book, but he does bring up the buck to fuck line because him and his mom's boyfriend at the time thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard in their life.
Yeah, and I do think Robert Englund hints at that maybe he was too old for the role because he said he put on his glasses, and when he puts on his glasses, they go over the tip of his nose, and he looks like a little like librarian guy. So yeah,
that's what I was thinking at that point. He was getting a little too old.
Yeah. So he talks about that. He talks about how he worked on the movie Halloween with John Carpenter. It was great to hear that. Yeah, he said he was just like he was doing odd end jobs one day, and John Carpenter and his band played below him in the basement, and they asked him to go gather up some leaves.
That's right. I've heard this story. Yeah.
They asked him to go gather up some leaves, and he threw leaves in front of the camera for Halloween. And apparently Robert Englund is responsible for Mark Hamill becoming Luke Skywalker, according to this documentary. So
that I did know that story. Yep.
Yeah. So like I said, you probably knew a lot of this. I knew some of it too, but not
only and he actually went Johnny, in a weird kind of twist of fate, in a weird way, Johnny Depp went to the audition for Nightmare on Elm Street with future Freddy, Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah.
They were both trying out. Well, Jackie was the one who was actually trying out for the part. Johnny was just hanging out. Because I can't remember where he said he was going, but he needed a ride somewhere. so, so his ride was Jackie. He's like, I'm going in for this audition first. So he's like, all right.
Yeah.
And they saw him and they wanted him to try out for the part. And
That's
you guys
funny.
know how he got the part.
Of for Johnny Depp, how he got the part?
Got the part of Glenn, yeah.
No,
because Wes Craven showed all the possible finalists for Glenn to his daughters who were teenagers at the time.
Yeah.
And all like 2 or 3 of them, I think it's 2 of them. 2 of them went both right to Johnny Depp and they said, him, daddy. And they're like, he's like, why? He's dreamy.
still getting that to today.
Yeah, a pinup star was born.
It was a good, fascinating documentary. Like, it takes like the first hour of the documentary it really builds up to like, this is who Robert Englund is. This is how he got into the business. These are all the movies he worked on.
Well, he was in a ton of shit before Freddy, too.
Exactly. Like, he talked about how he worked with Burt Reynolds. He talked about how he worked with Susan Sarandon, Jeff Bridges, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then how big break came with V. And then after V, that's when they get into the whole Nightmare on Elm Street, where it went from there. But it was pretty funny and interesting to hear some of that, and how I love this story about Burt Reynolds. Because he kills Burt Reynolds in the movie Hustle. And he said on the first day of the set, he had the gun and he was pointing at him, and the guy put too much stuff in the gun. And so when he shot it, it blew Burt Reynolds' wig back. And he said he didn't know Burt Reynolds was wearing a wig at that point in time.
Good thing it didn't become an Alec Baldwin situation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so he said it kind of freaked him out, because then afterwards, Burt Reynolds called him to his trailer, and he said, and this is something where, like, I think really where Robert Englund picked up what he does, because if you hear so many people talk about him, he's like, he will shake your hand, he will talk to you, he will help you. If you're an actor, he knows what you worked on. He said Burt Reynolds called him to the trailer and told him, don't worry about what happened up there today. You're doing great. He said, if anything, I want you to just be meaner and use that in the scene, because you're going to kill me, and it will help my character, the sympathy, so much better when I get killed if you just acted up so much more bigger and meaner. And he said that really stuck with him. So that was really good. I enjoyed hearing these stories from Robert Englund, and it's like 2 hours 10 minutes. It's a great, fascinating, poignant documentary. I think you'll really enjoy it. I think they did a great job. And I know that's not physical media, guys. I know that, but I will have that Blu-ray. I will have that Blu-ray next month. It comes out on Blu-ray. It comes out next month on Blu-ray. I will have that. So don't worry. But Rookie, welcome back. Do you want to show off a movie, or you got anything to say beforehand?
Oh yeah, I got one. Well, this is one I know that you guys will like. I mean,
Okay,
I don't remember FanZcene if it was your suggestion or not. Actually, it could have been yours or Justin's or Runner's or something, but probably not anything super special
movies.
for the stuff. But are
we seriously gonna have to talk about the Scream movies again? No,
I mean, all I can say is that I got super into these when I thought I wasn't going to. With the one that came out recently, I decided to sit down with Justin proper and watch all the Scream films beforehand, to watch the movie just for fun for the first time, because I never really watched them all. I pretty much just saw little glimpses on TV here and there, but watched them and I thought I was going to hate them. I was expecting to not like them. This is one of my favorite franchises now.
Please tell me though, after 4, you're like 5 and 6 suck.
I think that 5 was horrible. 6 has redeeming qualities, but it's still an overall bad film. The first 30 minutes, I think, was all right, but yeah, I mean, it was.
At least you got good taste if you were smart enough to say no. 5 is an insult.
Yeah, 5 is an insult, big time.
Yeah, I just say 5. Well, it's like by number 5, I question what's the point of Scream. So for perspective, only seeing it for the first time, and I watched them all in a row within 2 days. We watched them pretty much, and then saw the newest one on the third day. I don't have a whole bunch of time gathering this in. Only watched them once, right. So I don't, by the time I'm at the 5th one, I'm kind of what is the point of the Ghostface stuff anymore? Because before it seemed to be connected enough, logically enough, with certain things going on and character things. And I kind of was hoping they would do something more where even if they don't have a full-on Ghostface killer in the film, I would think they could still do something interesting with like Sydney and some of the characters or something. But I don't know. There's like, it's like, should they even continue if they're going to do something? Can you do a Scream film without there being the same exact sort of things that we've seen already, or would that wreck it? I mean,
I really think they should have ended Scream at 4. I think that should have been it, because 4 really did the whole reboot sequel thing. It did it the way it should have been done. It did it way better than 5 ever could attempt to have done it, because Wes Craven was behind it, and he knew what he was doing. And I really don't think the Radio Silence people get Scream, Wes Craven. I think they're very disrespectful, and I, for one, will not watch 5 ever again. And I have not seen 6, and I probably won't see 6, because I think it's okay to let things end. Personally, I think it's okay to let things end.
That's a question that I always have, is like, can franchises ever end? That's like, I made a video on that for. It's like, what, can they just not have any more after a point? Can a story be done? Like, can you stop? You know, is that possible? Because everything seems to pick up after some point, and it's like the ones that aren't continued, you can look back and go, that was a story. Let's look back at that when we want to, and that's good. Things aren't going to change. Things aren't going to like retcon what happened or anything. That's what we want at some point, right? Some of this stuff.
No, yeah.
Just always.
And 4 had a very nice kind of cap on things. I mean, you have the first 3, which are like a trilogy, and then the 4th film, like Greg just said, and I pointed out before too, is a perfect comment for the franchise and what they should say about remakes and reboots and rebootquels and, you know, legacy sequels, whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah.
That movie already did it. It already said it. It already tried introducing new characters in the next line, right? It even turned things on its head before Scream 5 did, because you actually had spoilers for a 20-year-old movie almost. You had Sydney's niece or cousin or whatever it was, who was jealous of her getting all the attention, you know, and she was the bad guy, which is already way more clever than trying to have the original killer's daughter be one of the protagonists. Not like, makes no fucking sense.
So that's my thing. So like,
oh my god! Sorry.
So like, I know this is, I guess it's still sort of on topic still with it, but it's like, I like my idea. Like, if you were to make another one at all for whatever reason, let's just say after 4, if we're pretending 5 and 6 don't exist with it, is that like, I think like Justin's had this idea, Killjoy Jake's had this idea, sort of, if we did focus on like the killer themselves the whole time, but if it was more like, the only thing I could think of with this concept is like, let's just say there's a serial killer that, you know, finds some type of interest with certain killings and likes how that was, but maybe he doesn't like, maybe he's trying to teach some people how to kill himself. And he's like, you know what, like, this was a good concept here. Let me show you guys how it's done. Let's you know, like some type of thing where he's like taking the concept of Ghostface that's popular in that world and like is, you know, trying to teach other people how to do that type of killings properly or something. But then again, otherwise I just go, why even do another one? It was, like I said, it was solid. Like, why run it dry? Why run the cow dry?
Yeah. Well, it used to be that once you'd start, you know, moved on from it and remade something or did a TV show and moved on from it for the most part, like, because they kind of did with the Scream TV show, and the same thing with like Halloween, for instance, with Rob Zombies. But I'm bringing that up for a reason. It's because once they went back to the original well for Halloween, it was like all bets were off. It's like, now we can bring back, you know, all the original people again. And even though we've gone off on this other thing, the audience will accept it now.
Right.
And that was kind of the mistake, because I think you're spot on. Like, Scream, it had its time. It is very of its time.
Yep.
The 4th film managed to comment on an entire generation of kids that were, you know, basically grew up with the original films by vicariously doing it through the Stab movies in their own universe. So it all works in that respect. Like you just said, Rookie, why are they using the masks still at this point? Like, who cares?
Yeah. Like, if anything, I would think, can you have a Scream film without Ghostface in it? Like,
well, it's the iconic part of the movie, right?
Like, well, I mean, if there was a film about Sydney in her adult years, like trying to, like, imagine her actually trying to get married and have a kid, like putting trust in other people after the fourth film, after everything she's gone through in her life. Like, how is this person somehow dealing with stuff after this? Like, that would be a movie I'd want to see. Maybe they wouldn't call it Scream. Maybe they call it, like, it'd be an obvious type of spinoff of Scream. But, like, that would be a movie I would see for that character. But, like, in the fifth one and sixth, they're like, oh, she had kids off screen and she got married off screen and she's doing fine off screen. It's like, well, fucking, is she really? What? Like, that's what I want to know.
Honestly, at this point, I understand horror is one of those genres, but Scream was one of those anomalies where I totally agree with you. You have your trilogy, you have your part 4 to comment on anything that would normally come after, and from there, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you do continue it, then you disconnect it from the original films, and you have them all be about copycats and other things to where it just kind of becomes, straight to streaming fodder at that point for the original fans can, I want to see what's going on, or I want to watch a Scream movie, but it's not going to affect or step on anything in the past, right?
Yeah.
To where that's the problem we have here is you have, especially in the fifth film, beyond the convoluted concept of having a bastard. I don't know what a woman is called if they're a bastard child, so I apologize. But a born out of wedlock child of the original killers kid, right? And beyond that problem, you have mopey Dewey through the whole fucking movie.
Oh God,
what they did, and his obsession with I just forgot her damn name, Gail Weathers.
They revert her back to normal. We're back to the same character again. And
Gail, she's the only one who has any reason. If anything, Gail should be your carrying through all these movies.
She's the most invested in the type of story and the type
exactly
of
like she's the only reason. Like she would show up just because the copycat killers and stuff. That's all you need. Even Dewey could tag along once in a while if you could just let them be together.
Yes.
Like just get over this will they, won't they, on again, off again bullshit.
They think that they have to be a part to have drama or something. I don't understand.
It's the classic trope of relationships in films. Plus, it doesn't help that they were married in real life and then divorced. So,
right.
Well, it's I'm baffled that they made the first. Like again, I thought the first script, like with the amount of meta stuff they kind of do and references, and they made the stab films in Scream. Like to me, that says that should be an awful film, but they do it so fucking well. It's insane. They do it so good. I don't get how else you can do it.
I mean, I don't know. Have you ever heard us go off about the whole problem with Scream, though? Because I have a love-hate relationship with Scream.
I think I watched some of that stream, I think from last year or the year before. Runner linked me that. I don't know if I watched it to the end, though. I think I was...
did I get to the parts of why I hate Scream altogether? And I mean the franchise as a whole?
I don't think I got to that. I got to when you guys were starting to talk about Scream 5, but that was around where...
This has less to do with Scream 5 and what it did to movies back then, because you got to put yourself, you were not alive back then, obviously.
Yeah.
You got to put yourself in the position of where horror movies were at that point. Like Freddy and Jason had kind of done their thing. They were kind of running out. Chucky was still kind of a thing, but he also had kind of been run through the ground. The horror had really been turned into this churn them out fodder for straight to video, more or less. And I mean, I loved a lot of the Full Moon and some of the other kind of B-movie level stuff that was coming out, but it really had gone to a point where it was probably one of its lowest points in the history of cinema, I would imagine. Like, horror was really out of style. Like, you even had, like, New Nightmare, which came out in 94 and was arguably one of the best horror films of the decade.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody paid attention.
Yeah, they talk about that in the Robert Englund thing, and he said how it really hurt him because he was surprised it didn't come out the gate swinging.
Well, and it was kind of what Scream was trying to say before Scream, but in a different way, and it didn't quite catch on with people, and I don't think people got the concept then. I believe it has a cult audience now, but it didn't even make back in theaters what it cost to make, really, at the end of the day. So, I mean, it did technically lose money. It was the only Freddy movie to ever lose money, which is sad.
Because it's a really great movie.
It is a really good movie, yeah. But then, like I'm saying, like we're in this state of horror where everything is just kind of in a shock place. Like it's just crap coming out mostly.
They say it's one step above porn.
Yeah, it was like schlock shock at that point.
It's like this is why it was difficult for me to kind of get into horror at all in the first place, I think, because it's so all over the place. And then it's like at some point I'm just kind of like, well, what's the point of a horror thing? If it's not trying to jump scare you to death, they're trying.
And that's the beauty of Scream, right? It came in at this point where we all knew the tropes. We had gone through what is ostensibly the silver age of horror, right? If you count the golden age of horror being the Dracula, Universal up through the 50s phase.
Right.
The 60s were kind of meandering. They didn't kind of come together until you started the slasher phase.
Yeah.
You had kind of two eras. You had, Exorcist, which started the haunting kind of phase. You got the Amityvilles out of that. And then you had the offshoot, which was, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff that came out of Psycho, right? Halloween, that kind of thing. Yeah. Which Scream is more of a direct child of that genre. Mm-hmm. And what that genre was talking about. Mm-hmm. And so when Scream came out, what it did was poke fun at the fact that, of all these tropes that are in horror movies, it give us an audience, or give us a set of teens that were the audience for these movies, right? Because that was kind of the whole thing with like a Friday the 13th movie. These teenagers were so dumb because they didn't know any better, right? As to where we are already trained as teenagers, don't go in the fucking woods alone. And if you do, take some people with you and some protection.
You know what happens when
exactly. And that's kind of what it was commenting on. But what happened then with that was Scream became the highest grossing horror film of all time when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't count Silence of the Lambs. It's definitely the highest grossing slasher film of all time.
Yes.
And what happened then was everything had to be Scream. So you had what was called the Scream effect. And so for the next 5 to 10 years, everything was going off that same formula. And it kind of ended with one of the better ripoffs, and that was Final Destination. And the only reason that one was better was because that was actually an original idea. The only thing it had in common with Scream was teenagers, again, at that point. Right. I mean, they were kind of similar-ish teenagers that were smart, and they kind of had these ideas.
Puts people in like, well, what if you slipped on a toaster? What if you did this? Like, small things.
It kind of took a unique take on making.
That was a different taste on fear.
It actually was literally taking the Grim Reaper and making him the slasher.
And you know what's funny about that? That you bring that up? The writer of that movie is in the Robert Englund documentary, and he said he credits Robert Englund and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise for that movie.
I can see that.
Because he said when he was 14 years old, he wrote a Nightmare on Elm Street script, sent it to New Line Cinema, and then they eventually gave him a job when he was 19, and he wrote Final Destination while working there, and then he made Final Destination through them. So that's how that came to be.
And I was taught something. Bastardus.
There you go. Bastardus.
That's the word, kids.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, go ahead.
So Billy Loomis's daughter is a bastardess.
And she shouldn't even exist because Billy Loomis, by all accounts, was a virgin in the first movie.
Yep.
Yes, Wes Craven's accounts. He was a virgin in the first movie. His whole focus was Sydney and conquering her and all that. So there would have been no.
That's another thing. Sex aside, because I mean, let's be real. Guys will be guys. Will be guys.
Mm-hmm.
You or anybody who's ever been so drop dead in love that they're obsessed with somebody, or who's had a friend that was so in love with somebody they were obsessed, they weren't fucking worried about fucking nobody else,
right?
They are so obsessed with that person. That is everything. And especially somebody who's obsessed as Billy Loomis to set that shit up to kill him. Do you think they really are giving a shit or putting any time or effort into fucking anybody else? No.
Well, nope. It's one of those like weak versions of, oh, well, you didn't know this, but it turns out that he had somebody else off screen, and then now we're following that child.
Long lost twin brother.
Like I guess that's an idea that technically you could maybe do, but I mean, that's so weak at the start. How would this get like approved? It's so weak to start.
What it was is, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it would make better sense had they not really had any direct relation, but they were just family of Loomises, and they had to happen to have the fucking name. Yeah, and them going through the persecution of it all. Yeah. And it's like they're innocent in this matter. The problem you have here is that's a decent enough setup, but when you have her having these fucking weird visions of her daddy she never would have fucking met in the first place.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, there's that.
She wouldn't even known how he acted.
There's a lot of things.
Like, pick up the knife, go for it, daughter.
I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi now.
There's a lot of things that didn't make sense in the movie. Like when she had a house alarm code, the little sister, or like the younger sister had like a house alarm code with her phone, and she locks it, but then it just unlocks. And then we find out who the killers are, and I'm like, so they like had access to the alarms and the house? Like I don't know.
That's
and then
because
she gets stabbed a bunch. Did they stab her intend to not kill her? Because I don't know how. Did they know anything about Did they know anything about anatomy to like not kill somebody with stabs? Like, I don't know. Like,
it's
I think more
subversion
technical.
because Radio Silence thanked Rian Johnson for this. They thanked that it's at the end of the movie. They thank Rian Johnson. They bring up Rian Johnson in that movie.
Yeah.
It's all subversion.
And this is where I've gotten into arguments with people because they're like, "Oh no, this is not saying what you think it's saying." It's like, no bullshit. This is just like The Last Jedi. Boom. There's your fucking proof.
It is right there. And plus, I really think they just watched the scene in the first movie when Randy and them's at the video store and Billy's over there talking to some girls. I think that's probably the only scene they watch and think, "Hey, that's where we got it from." Yeah, that's where we got it from.
Again, it's like, to me, I liked some of the concepts for some of the characters, some of the ideas that they could have gone with for the stories, but I think the problem is, like you guys were saying, it wouldn't be as much of a focus on Scream itself. Like, it might as well be a different franchise at that point, because it wouldn't be the same Ghostface type of thing. So why have it be Scream at all? Like, and it could maybe be something interesting with that, using the formula. I mean, using all these having this killings in their history and being somewhat tied to it. There could be things to do, but who's going to write that story and who's going to make it work?
Well, and I got my last circumstantial evidence, and it may be circumstantial, but I think it drops the mic on why it's impossible that Billy Loomis would have a child with anybody else. And this is why. Number one, I think the only reason he was talking to those girls in the video store was to get back to Neve Campbell and make her jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, when he is going off at her at the end, his whole reason for doing this is predicated on the fact that his mother, or her mother, cheated with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think if he would have cheated on her, he would have threw that in her face?
Exactly.
That would have been another nail in the coffin.
Circumstantial evidence, but
I agree with that.
Yeah,
the way he was doing that, you think it eventually he would have said, right after you would have brought up the whole fact that she gave it up, would it be like, and better yet, I got you back because I slept with so and so anyway.
Well,
the bitch that sits behind you in history class.
Does the info from Scream 3 support that even more with the other killer in that one?
That's the thing, is Scream 3 was retroactively, because believe it or not, Rook, I was part of the original subgroup in the internet back then, because we didn't have social media, but we had forums and stuff.
Oh, I can believe it, yes.
And we would get together on these forums, and we had theories that there has to be a third killer. And the third film played into that brilliantly. So that's one of the reasons why some of us fans actually have a soft spot.
I enjoy it, yes.
So it's the way I rate 3, just since you brought it up with fans and stuff. I think that 1, 2, and 3 are equally good for different reasons, for being what they are. Like, for the first one being the first of its franchise, the second one for being the sequel and accomplishing what it needs to do in a sequel, and same with the third for wrapping it all up. In that way, I see them as
is 3 as good as the first two? No, but
but I'm saying in achieving what they are, because it's hard to be to have a trilogy of films and have one overpass the other in a way. I don't know, it's harder to judge it. Even in Lord of the Rings, it's which one's the best of them? Well, fuck, they're all great and for different qualitative reasons, I guess. So.
It's is it as good as Return of the King as a third film? No. But is it as bad as, say, what some people consider, Smokey and the Bandit 3? Oh, fuck no. Not by far. Or even Jaws 3, for that matter.
Well, I guess I was more comparing to the films within its own franchise. Is Return of the King better or worse than Fellowship or Two Towers? Yeah. That's tougher to kind of judge because they are accomplishing different things. So,
yeah.
But no, 3's other problem was it came 2-3 years too late.
Yeah, it came a little too late, but I like it in the sense that once you know the horror, because I love horror films, I love slashers, and once you know the genres that they play into, and know that Kevin Williamson, when he created Scream, it's essentially his Halloween, and the fact that the third movie, which by the point should have ended there, ended with it being her brother as the killer, fits perfectly into the whole Halloween theme of the movie because it's his Halloween. So And I'm sure you don't know anything about the Halloween things there, what I'm talking about, do you, Rookie?
I mean, I think probably vague things that I've heard from you or Justin.
In the original Halloween timeline, before they changed it multiple times, Michael Myers was Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie. He was her brother in the original timeline. So that's why that plays out so well. It is what it is. But yeah, there's so many reasons. Plus, why if Billy's mom cheated on her dad and caused her to leave, why would Billy cheat, knowing that how mad it made him that his mom cheated or that
exactly, unless he's going to use it against her. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Point, right?
Why would he cheat on his one true love? Because he's being a hypocrite, and I don't see him as he's a psycho, but not a hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, even if he's going to be a hypocrite, it's not going to be for his own pleasure. It's going to be to piss her off.
To get back at her.
Like, I like in number 3, there's so much there. I mean, there's things in there that I almost want to tweak, but then I'm like, well, no, it's actually decent. Like when she's at the Hollywood set of her house and she like thinks that she sees her mom, I assume, right? I'm remembering right.
Yeah, the weird,
that's
like
a little odd, but like, I don't know. I feel like with the amount of stuff she's been going through with all this, I imagine
it's not the same as the Loomis shit though, right? Because you can kind of chalk it up to like hallucinations and weird nightmares. Yeah,
they make it to me. They make it clear that she's emotional with some of the stuff, like with her parents. Like she loved her parents for one. Like she. Obviously. I don't know. They I don't know. They're able to express that better. And I think that the 5th and 6th one could have had a way to do it, but you're right. It seems so lazy. Like, look, he's in the mirror and he's like, it's like, no, like you're not. I wasn't getting emotion out of any of that with her from the character. It was just like, hey, audience, this is what's in her head, huh? It's like
that's just it. She wouldn't have any connection with her father.
Yeah.
And even if there was anything that she could follow in the news, this is even pre-internet being like it is now, to where there's not going to be a lot. He didn't have a Facebook page. There's not going to be a shit ton to go on to where your dad's going to be like, if they ever talk about him on the news, you're going to see the same 2 or 3 pictures every time. At this point in history,
it makes the killers even just more dumb too. In that they're like, oh, we're going to try to blame it on the daughter of him that should be hardly known to her even. But then,
well not at all. Yeah.
When she talks about it, she like accidentally overheard it. She wouldn't have known that she was Billy Loomis related to him if she didn't overhear it from her mom or something.
That's right. And that's just it. And not only that, the vision she has of him is like, my whole point is you'd be hard pressed to even find any video recordings of him.
Yeah.
At that time period.
That's like the way I think of it. You're right. Like if she even like was simply gripping a knife to, put some butter on some bread. Like if the camera just, focuses on her hand a little bit, grips it a little tighter than normal, looks at somebody or something, and it's okay, back to normal. Like that would be a more subtle way to, just, I don't know.
Well, you could even still have her. Okay, look, I'll even give you the let her be the illegitimate daughter. It's the fucking visions part, right? Like I said, you could even play into the fact that you can even play into the fact that okay, she just found out she's Billy Loomis's daughter, right? And what she would have to go through to deal with that, and like maybe some other people find out, and that's kind of the twist of the movie is. Hello, I know who your daddy is. Well, that's a more interesting, scary kind of thing, right?
What if she killed an animal on accident, but didn't feel very sorry for it? Like something simple.
You don't even need to go to that point, Rook. That's my whole point, is you keep her completely innocent, and then that gives her incentive to actually, the last person in the world that Sidney Prescott would dream to hear calling her. Going, look, I'm getting these weird phone calls, and it's like you used to get, but they're claiming they know who my dad is, and nobody should know who he is. Like, that's the thing they could share in common is like, yeah, because that's the other thing. Never shows up, and she fucking knows.
So you're Billy's daughter.
Oh, yeah, so you're Billy's daughter. We didn't fucking tell you, by the way, but everybody fucking knew. It was the town's worst kept secret.
I forgot to get in touch with you about that.
You could play into that fact that it was the town's worst kept secret, right? Like, that she's like treated differently her whole life, and she can't figure out why. And then when she figures out when she's a teenager why, then all of a sudden this shit starts happening to her, that somebody has uncovered her past. And is now, and you can have it play into it like a remake of the first movie. It is her boyfriend and somebody else or whatever, but that's the thing, is at least gives her a new generation a reason to reach out, and you can still be a familial connection, and it doesn't have to be this, I'm seeing visions of my dad and now he's telling me to kill, and it's like no, fucker, you started this shit.
Exactly.
It's your fucking fault. All of this.
I am sorry that
I hate that. It's just like, and anybody who tries to defend it, it's just like, what are you fucking smoking, and how do I get some? Because motherfucker, you are on some other planet.
Smoke weed every day.
We hate 5 around here. We've talked Scream so much on this channel.
And I skimmed through 6 enough to be like, whatever.
No, I gotcha. Like, there's only a few aspects that I like in 6, but yeah, it's mostly.
And I get it. It would be interesting to see a twist of a Scream film where the whole movie is from the perspective of the killer. That is an interesting take. But how scary is that going to necessarily be through the whole? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't think about it in terms of how scary it'd be. I just think of it like that's an interesting concept to see explored.
I mean, you could do that and mix that with the other part of like, you see who's torturing her this whole time. Maybe that's the whole point, is we see him as the audience, but we don't know the reason. And then we don't find out until she finally sees his face, who we know who he is, and make up some good reason as to who he is. But like, you know, maybe it is one of the, maybe it is one of the relatives of one of the people that was killed in one of the earlier films or something.
This is why, like, I feel like having Sydney still be a part of it. Like, if she has kids, and let's say, like, you think she'd be paranoid if anybody called her child's phone and did the ghost face thing, like, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like there's something.
There's a story there too. That's like the next generation.
Like, does Sydney take up some boxing classes or learn how to fight so she can, you know, do better hand-to-hand combat with any killer that tries to mess
That's
with
just it. Unless
like,
you do something like I said. The only reason Sydney should have been in part 5 is she gets a phone call. Oh, the killings are happening again. Oh yeah, do they have anything to do with me? No, I think you're in the clear this time, Sydney. All right, see you later. She hangs up the phone, cocks a gun, puts it back in her purse, and keeps on walking, and we don't see her for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's far better than in 6 when they're like, she deserves a break or something. She deserves a happy ending. Like, you keep her name out your goddamn
She got
mouth.
2 happy endings. Movies ago.
Now the rumor is they're going to have to. Now the rumor is they're bringing her back for the next one.
Oh God,
I don't understand oh my God, I don't understand why they keep on. Oh, who are we going to bring back now? It's like, just leave them alone. Leave them alone.
One good thing about that is the Radio Silence people aren't going to be behind it. They're going to be fucking up another franchise.
I forgot what are they moving on to? I forgot.
Oh yeah, I forgot what it is, but it's another franchise they're working on. At one point, it was supposed to be Escape from New York.
Remake. That's right. Yeah.
And then now it's something else too, which I can't remember.
I can't either now. I do remember talking about it recently though.
Yeah.
I'm glad to chat Scream with you guys, but I'm sorry if I derailed it a little.
No. It's just that this is a thing where we have talked Scream probably more times on this show than any other franchise. Because Runner has brought it on, I brought it on, Greg's brought it on in various versions.
Yeah.
We finally got to this point where we talked about it so much that we're like, we're just going to do a fucking Scream stream and get it out of our system.
And we did.
So we 3 hours. Talk about it again. Here comes Rookie.
I'm still pretty fresh, so I'm, I didn't get to have those.
The second most movie we've probably talked about is the Halloween franchise, because we usually talk about them around Halloween, because that's when we usually watch
and then the Snyder films just because of fucking Runner,
yeah. Runner is going to be pissed if he watches this back.
Well, we do talk Tarantino quite a bit, but we've managed to usually sync those up to where, we try to sync them up once in a while, like the question I just asked you in the private chat, Greg. I don't know if you saw that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't see that quite yet.
No, that's all right. But I don't know if you want to keep moving then or what we're doing here, because I think I'm done talking about Scream at this point.
Yeah.
That's fine. I feel like it's drained enough here. We're good. Glad to talk about it because I love the franchise.
For what it's worth, the version you have there is one of the better collections. Although obviously we got 4K versions of 1 and 2 now, but that has all the better special features and everything.
Yeah, I think that's why I got it, because FanZcene are
2 great documentaries.
There's documentaries on there, and I want to check those out. So
yeah, they're really good.
I really again. So me not liking horror films that much, I am starting to. I'd say I like over 10 horror films now, or I'm counting Scream as 1 for the 4. But it's growing. going on?
All right. Yeah. Okay. We'll get off the Scream stuff.
I'll take y'all back to William Friedkin. How's
okay.
that
What
sound?
do you got? I almost called you Runner. I'm sorry.
Okay. The movie is good. And it is kind of weird because it's kind of like Friedkin's sequel to The French Connection. And the reason I say that is it will become clear as I get into this. But up front, I will say Arrow got this, I'm assuming from Warner Brothers, supposedly approved by Friedkin himself, but it looks like donkey shit. It is DNR'd to shit. There's dot crawl all throughout the film. It looks like it has a bunch of edge enhancement. We talked a little bit about this on 4K, but the movie is cruising. Now, it's a very controversial film, but the reason it's kind of like a sequel in a weird way to The French Connection is while he was making The French Connection, he was working with the real cops that were, involved in that case. And one of the cops he worked with is the character that Al Pacino plays in this movie. And that cop actually happened to go in undercover in the gay nightclub scene because there was some murders going on. And this movie kind of chronicles that. Now it's an amalgamation of a lot of the real cases that had happened, and the way the movie plays out is very interesting. But considering it came out in 1980, it was really weird because Friedkin, much like with French Connection, went, around to a lot of these places with, the cop that this is based on, and saw a lot of this stuff firsthand. Well, I went down a Friedkin kick is what happened. Even though the second film was Frankenheimer, but it's a sequel to a Friedkin film, so go figure. But yeah, it's a very, very dark film. And it looks like shit, unfortunately, but it's a good movie. Very good movie. Very twisted film. But anyways, I was saying, like, Friedkin went to a lot of these real bars and hangouts and saw all this shit firsthand. So it's not like he was making any of this stuff up. In fact, he was so keen on having authenticity that he made sure he got gay actors and trans actors in the roles for the most part as much as possible. And still at that time in 1980, when this movie came out, it was protested by gay rights activists. Go figure. So even back then, the woke fucks couldn't let a movie be. But again, it's like this movie does have kind of it kind of is a kickoff of this era of films that went on for about a decade or so. It kind of was the peak. It peaked off with Silence of the Lambs, with having basically very gay or sexually ambiguous murderers in a film, and generally, something to do with their problem having to do with their orientation. But you know what? I disagree with that. I think that a lot of the problem was that a lot of them didn't watch the film, because I think it paints the community in all sorts of different colors and lights that they ignored at the time, in both positive and negatively, and in any way, shape. I think it's a very honest film.
You mean it treats them very human?
Like, very human, and then both sides. It also shows the persecution and shit they did go through, and especially with the cops and stuff. You even have a point where the guy who's undercover that Pacino plays, he's getting upset with how rough some of these guys are getting. With one of the guys that they think might be one of the suspects, but Brian, I don't know if they would now. That's the thing. That movie doesn't have anything in it so bad that I think they would go after, because it's the right kind of wrong.
It's not on their radar right now.
See, now this film would be called progressive.
If anybody that loved this film, you were all, for the progressive stuff back then, huh? Or something.
Well, it's just like it has the right notes in it for them, so yeah. I think they wouldn't treat it the same way, because it doesn't have. It's that's the thing, is it's just like French Connection, and it's a very dark, true, realistic look at New York a couple decades later, actually, than what the French Connection would technically be, or at least a decade later. But it's kind of a connection in the sense that it's the same kind of guys, that work in the same kind of situations. Only this is the murder side of it, not the narcotics side of it. And this was, like I said, based loosely on some actual cases. And the way the twists happen at the end is, it's almost not like a twist, but it's weird. You almost don't know it unless you know the making of the film. So I can kind of almost say this without giving it away. because they kind of show the killer right away. What they did is really clever. And I didn't know it until I watched the making of it. And it threw me off because I'm watching the movie and I'm like, wait a minute, something's weird here. Because what they did was the first victim, there's a victim, the killer. Okay. So then the second time, the guy who was actually the victim is the killer now with a new victim. And then you go back to the original killer. He's now being killed by that last victim. So there's these three guys that keep alternating throughout the movie and having somebody else do a voiceover that is not any of those actors. But then they do decide that one of these characters is one of the things at the end, but it's throwing you off so bad because you get to that point and you're like, wait a minute, is this a guy or isn't this a guy? Because he doesn't have the same chin and he doesn't have the same voice. And you're just like, and again, that's not giving too much away, I don't think, because it's just the way the movie twists itself. And I don't think it's giving away too much because in real life, they never caught anybody. So spoilers, again, just like it has a very similar ending to The French Connection in that sense. But I'm not going to say that's how the movie plays out. So there's the thing. It's not technically a spoiler. Yeah, Tim Hayes, the line, you made me do it. Yeah.
You made me do it.
Yeah, and that's the other play on it too is, and this is the thing is, it could be numerous killers, but basically Friedkin says yes and no to all those answers all the time. He just, it's whatever you want. And that's the thing with Friedkin. He's just like, yeah, maybe, no, yes.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. It's just like until The French Connection 2 came out, he used to answer, how did The French Connection end? What was the gunshot? He answered it different all the time. One time he would tell him it was just, Popeye shooting in anger. Another time Popeye shooting himself. Another time Popeye shooting the French dude. He would answer it different every time. It's like he'd be like, "It's whatever you fucking think it is what he'd finally say.
Yeah, open to interpretation.
And he liked that part, and that's what led to the argument for The Exorcist, and why we have two different versions of The Exorcist. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that when The Exorcist comes out in September.
Yeah, when it comes out. Yeah, I'm hoping
got an argument with William Peter Blatty about the ending.
Yeah, I'm hoping
you actually see it on camera, which is amazingly funny. Because you see the moment where he finally says, all right, I will do this. And that's when he probably went and talked to Warner Brothers. It's like, you want to do this? Let's do
it. That's great. That'll be interesting to see when we
He's
get
a very proactive motherfucker. Just like, that's why I can't believe he hasn't said shit yet, unless he's doing it behind the scenes.
Maybe he is. I mean, it is really weird that he hasn't spoken up or Criterion hasn't said anything. And I understand that it's not Criterion that did the censoring, but
Probably
they're showing it on their channel. So they have.
Now we kind of know that for sure. You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Cruising.
It's not a movie that you would just rent.
Yeah, I get that.
Gotta do other things to get this film.
It is probably the closest Friedkin ever did to a slasher film, though. I mean, I may be wrong. I may be forgetting something, but because, the murderer in it and the way it plays out is very slasher-like, and it's very shot the same kind of way. But it is still real and grimy looking. I mean, it's just kind of just set up in this idea that you have this world in New York of the S&M. It's in the real hardcore S&M type gay clubs and shit like that. So the leather clubs and all that.
The Blue Oyster.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic film. Now, somebody was asking me earlier if this is the uncut version. As far as I know, but I haven't looked into it too much. And I would think that there's no way that Friedkin would okay a non, which has really got me worried and weary about what the fuck is going on here. Because this is from a 4K scan of the original negative, and it was supervised by Friedkin himself. So I don't know if he okayed all this DNR, or if this was something that was applied after the fact, because this DNR problem is something that's kind of across the board with Warner Brothers. But see, I would think this would be a movie that the archive would handle, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was big enough that they wouldn't. I don't know how big it was at the time. I know it was pretty well-known film, though. I mean, I remember it being one of those movies. I remember seeing it when I was way younger, and the other thing I guess I would bitch about is that they don't have the original fucking VHS art for this.
That not even a reversible?
No, the reverse cover's stupid.
Oh, that's bullcrap.
This is one of the worst reverse covers.
Here, let me do this real quick.
It's just basically a guy without his shirt on. I can't even tell if it's Al Pacino or not.
Yeah, I've honestly had no idea what the cover.
And this pretty much, you can't see what it is, luckily, because it pretty much gives kind of part of the ending away. But it's like, that sucks. Not that I'm like that big of a fan of the film. I mean, it's a really good film, but I mean, it's not a movie I plan on watching again anytime soon unless they get a 4K version.
So little rough.
It is a rough film. It is a very rough film.
All right, that's cool. Freaking, we had some. Everybody keeps asking if you've seen Sorcerer, and I think you said earlier you have not seen Sorcerer yet. So
I think I seen it once as a kid on TV, but I can't remember it. So I remember my dad wanting to watch it one night on like TBS or something like that. It was on maybe TNT or something.
Yeah. All right. I may have seen it too. It's been so long since I've seen so many. And you know what?
Movies. 4K cinema, I don't know where it's going to come from because this is already 5 years old. Although that is not that old, so it should look better than it does, but it looks horrid. I mean, it makes some older scans looks like so good in comparison of some films. What was that? Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Is there like a time frame? Speaking of 4K, and you are the 4K master. Like, is there any type of format or time frame that studios or companies or whatever like choose to make certain films into 4K or?
Like we've kind of tried to assess the pattern. Usually it seems to go by a director. Like they'll get a director in and they start to scan their films in. But
like
as far as like
new becomes 4K pretty quick.
Kind of. Actually, believe it or not, most new stuff is mastered in 2K.
Really?
But they don't tell you that.
Yeah.
Because most digital stuff nowadays, which almost everything is filmed digitally, it's just mastered in 2K from top to bottom. Yeah, sometimes they'll shoot it in like 5 or 6K, but it's because it takes so much more time to render out in 4K that they, like if they're doing any special effects and stuff like that, it's
I guess that makes more sense, but I figured that
4 times the resolution and all that business. So what they'll do is just up convert movies, which has caused an issue with, like I recently talked about Spider-Man No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Since that's a 2K interpositive, it looks like crap. It looks smudgy.
So, like they tried to increase the quality, but that kind of
they did, but it just kind of makes it dingy looking and a little bit kind of I mean. Yeah. I couldn't argue that maybe the Blu-ray looks just as good or better at the end of the day. Yeah, in most cases.
Yeah, I assume trying to alter something that shouldn't be stretched is going to make it look worse, I would assume.
Or but pretty much anything that's done on film is high enough resolution.
Well, so like
digital is a crapshoot after that.
Is there a limit? Like, let's say that we have some type of footage, however we have it from VHS or some type of old film footage of like a 19, or I guess this is a question for you. What's the oldest film that is in 4K? Like the oldest film going back.
We've got stuff from going back to the 1800s, actually.
Yeah.
It's been scanned in 4K. Yeah,
older film works perfectly in 4K.
Yeah, the resolution of film it's not like pixels or lines of resolution as we think of it. A picture is made up of various elements, and on film it almost captures things. Basically they've said that film can capture, depending, like 35 millimeter is somewhere close between 4K and 6K. But when you get to like IMAX size picture, which is like 65-70 millimeter, you could probably go up to 8K or more resolution before you could ever really truly capture the amount of detail, color that is captured on film, even though it's an analog format. Digital is getting there, but the problem is the amount of storage space needed yet, and how it processes and all that kind of stuff on the post-production end.
Mm-hmm.
So like anything that's filmed digitally, if it has a bunch of digital effects in it, they're 9.9 times out of 10 is always going to be done in 2K, and they're just going to up convert it from there. Because they don't have the time, the space, the money, the effort to put into doing these things in 4K.
I figure that 2K would be the default, but then they like obviously make.
We're 4K. Getting there to where 4K is getting more viable. I mean, I think Sony has done a lot of their films outside of Spider-Man No Way Home, which I believe would have been produced by Disney anyway. But a lot of Sony films have been 4K to beginning to end, from what we've kind of been learning.
Okay.
But there were a few companies.
Films, though. That's.
But unless you're like a Peter Jackson or a Christopher Nolan or somebody, or Tarantino, who actually still films on film, Like, yeah, most of your stuff is trapped in 2K forever.
Yeah, it's the digitalness that's.
And that's when we just hit the digital age, basically. And that's anything when they started filming everything on digital cameras, which has been about 10 years.
Is that because it's cheaper to film on digital?
Oh, hell yeah, a lot
cheaper.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. Stupid question. My bad.
Well, it's basically like video, right? Myself. You can watch it directly. Right. You don't have to wait for it to process. No, you can shoot right. all day long.
I answered. I'm like, my phone. That's technically digital or camcorder.
Yeah, even most phones have 4K now.
Answered myself because a film would be far different.
It's just having the amount of it's the processing time on the back end, more or less. And the size of the files and all that kind of business. It's because even the versions we're watching on a 4K disc are technically compressed way down. I mean, they're technically 4K resolution, but the raw files are such high resolution and such high bit rate that they're huge.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they take up what we'd normally consider like an entire hard drive on a computer, and then some in some cases, possibly. So.
Right. I mean, I'd assume 2K on a lot of older films would probably look better, I would assume, but
not really, believe it or not. Only on digital things. That's a video and digital. Like, because video is always going to be trapped in some sort of low
what's the
res
difference between video and digital.
Okay, well, once we did video, started in the late 60s, early 70s, somewhere in that region, and video was kind of the format for television, live television. Like most TV shows were still done on film. But then up through the 80s, they started doing a lot of sitcoms on video. Mm-hmm. Shows like Saturday Night Live were shot on video. All the talk shows at the time were shot on video. But then they transitioned over to digital. And when they went over to digital, a lot of them got a little bit better resolution. So now you have a variance from 480p up through 720p in some variances depending on what kind of camera you had at some point there. But then when George Lucas made the prequels, he shot episode 2 and 3 which at that time were the highest resolution HD cameras, which were 1080i, which is interlaced instead of, so it's still it's a lower resolution than actual 1080p 2K. So those movies are trapped forever in that resolution because all the live action was shot that way. Now they could tweak and mess around with if George wanted to go back, he could upgrade the effects. If he wanted to do it at the expense it would cost. But the humans and all the stuff that was shot on set is never going to look that good. So, and that's kind of around that era, starting about late 2010s era is when everything started switching over to digital. And from there, pretty much everything's in 2K. But before that, if it was shot on film, it'll always look better in 4K. Always. If it's scanned and handled correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think about it that way. That's interesting.
That is true.
Because film is such even 16 millimeter film has a lot of resolution.
Mm-hmm.
8 millimeters probably where I would say technically is about the most resolution you get out of 8 millimeter might be 1080p, but that's even debatable in some cases because there's no set amount of pixels or anything on film. It all goes by the amount of light that's captured at that time, and it's a lot of variables. So
yeah. But we have a $5 super chat here I want to get to real quick from Tommy Reviews. He says, I missed out on the Mario Steelbook like you, Tom. I picked up Mario 65. I almost thought that said Mario 64. Mario 65, 48 hours, another 48 hours, Craig Bond set, and Brotherhood of the Wolf. How did I do?
Hopefully you didn't spend too much. If you got them all for a decent price. Good for you, brother.
Big time, and I'm a big fan of Brotherhood of the Wolf and 48 hours, another 48 hours. So
the only problem with another 48 hours is that damn transfer, man.
Yeah. Oh, and by the by, Brotherhood of the Wolf and People Under the Stairs 4K are region locked to US.
I heard region
locked to US. Yes.
Yeah, you were saying that, then I saw a post about it. I have, I think both of them. I don't have Brotherhood of the Wolf, but I just got. People Under the Stairs last week, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get that one too. Yeah, by region locked, rookie. If you're wondering what that means, is like 4K is usually a region free. You can buy them and watch them across the world.
Anywhere in the world,
yeah, anywhere in the world. But region locked means like it's only playable on 4K players here in the US.
Well,
So
I think there's a film I bought. I think it was a German film, and I was just checking it out for a review, but it was like it wasn't play. And then I was looking up more details on it, and it was like I need like a different type of DVD player or something to play it from. Like they're like, oh, Canada and other things have this player, but not
region.
I'm like, fuck me. Like, and then it even said that sometimes those don't even work. I'm like,
yep.
Well, how the hell are you supposed to watch the movie? Like,
but you got to have a region-free player to do that. But thank you so very much, Tommy Reviews, for that. I think I'm going to give you Joe Dante.
Somebody said, well, it's because kids won't watch black and white. And you know what I say? Fuck them. They can't watch black and white.
That's funny. You are both muted if you don't know.
Cruising.
Oh, sorry. I was muted.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Well,
Fuck him.
Fuck him. I love Joe Dante.
Well, fuck him and fuck Alexander.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and show my final movie, and then Rook will hit you with whatever other movie you brought after I'm done.
Okay. I love the faith you have in me.
All right. So I watched Dracula versus Frankenstein from 1970. I can't remember what year. And my camera, I know, probably just went fuzzy because my signal just dropped. But yeah, I just watched this. This is from Severin, the new release. I did pull a runner. I didn't actually watch Brain of Blood yet, which is the second feature on here. But Dracula versus my camera, I know, has got to be
versus your camera. I know, right?
And my internet just dropped all of a sudden, went from 2 bars to 1. So, okay. But yeah, I watched.
It's funny because you haven't had any issues at all tonight.
I know, and then all of a sudden this happens, and now it's back in. So if anybody didn't see it, there you go. I got that. Dracula vs. Frankenstein.
Which I got, but I didn't get to. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's from. I didn't watch Brain of Blood yet, so it's the second feature on there. But I enjoyed it. It's one of those crazy bad movies, and by all accounts, from what I've watched and read on watching it, is that this movie started off to be just like about a mad scientist kidnapping girls, cutting their heads off and experimenting on them, and then they decided to add in Dracula and Frankenstein because they thought it would sell better. So that's how they sort of got involved. And then
was that a rights thing? Can they just do that? Or
yeah, as long as they don't look like, you can use Frankenstein in anything pretty much, as long as it doesn't look like the Universal Monsters version of Frankenstein. And same with Dracula.
Oh,
yeah. Well, Dracula is a bit different, but actually the guy that plays Dracula in this is wearing Bela Lugosi's cape. He's actually wearing Bela Lugosi's cape from the original Dracula movie. But yeah, it's about this doctor. He's kidnapping these girls, cutting their heads off, reattaching them, and trying to bring them back to life. Then Dracula shows up and says, "I know you're really the last remaining family member of Dr. Frankenstein. You're not really this guy. You're this guy, and I have in my possession the Frankenstein monster, and you're going to help me so I can walk in the day." And so they go about their business. And then meanwhile, this one woman, this Vegas showgirl, is looking for her sister, and she's one of the girls that they killed and have, and so she teams up with a bunch of hippies because this movie is very, very 70s, very 70s. So she teams up with a bunch of hippies looking for her sister, and it all comes down to Dracula versus Frankenstein. So that's the gist of the movie. It's fun, it's cheesy, it's bad, it's over the top, it's campy, bad effects. I love every minute of it, and it's very 70s and psychedelic. So and it's also the last performance of I've just forgot his name, and he's my favorite. My God, where is it at? Come on, tell me the name here, people. I'm looking at the back. Lon Chaney Jr. It's the last performance of Lon Chaney Jr., who played the original Wolfman. They said that he was so bad at the end of this movie that he was such an alcoholic, and that he talked in a whisper, so they made his character mute in the movie, and that in between takes he would lay on the floor and cry and tell the guy playing Dr. Frankenstein, because he was a famous actor too, that we're the only two left, and then shortly after the movie he passed away. but yeah, I mean, if you've never seen it, if you can, I doubt you'll be able to handle this rookie. But if you can handle like very 70s psychedelic, cheesy, like, man, it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
It depends. I mean, some films surprise me in catching me, so you never know.
I enjoyed it, man, and it was a fun movie. And the guy playing Dracula is just like, I think it might have been his first role from when I remember watching the special features. And he was like, it took him to almost halfway through the film before he found his footing as Dracula. So if that tells you any instance on his performance in the movie. Yeah, and they called him Sandor Vorkov in the movie. Yeah, that wasn't his real name. They actually came up with that name on the set of the movie. That one of the producers like, your name's Sandor Vorkov, so that's what they credit him as. Is his real name? His real name's totally different. Yeah. So, but it's a fun movie, and they say the monster is played by John Bloom. And if anybody knows the Joe Bob Briggs, that's his real name. So when I heard that, I thought it was Joe Bob Briggs playing Frankenstein. Turns out it's not. It was just a stuntman named John Bloom. So it's not Joe Bob Briggs playing Frankenstein, which was a little disappointing. But it's fun. It's a fun movie. Tom, you'll totally dig it because I know you love Dracula movies and stuff. So I know you'll dig it.
Honestly, I don't even realize. I don't think I knew it was a double feature on it.
Yeah, it's a double feature. Brain of Blood, which is also an Al Addison movie because Al Addams.
I guess I didn't pay that much attention.
Yeah, and it also comes with. I don't know if you saw that. It also comes with the CD, the soundtrack to the film.
No, I don't think I mean, I don't know if I opened it, to be honest with you. Now, maybe, but I don't think I did, or I would have known it was a double feature, probably.
Well, you'll at least enjoy Dracula.
There is a lot of movies that I have not gotten to yet. But when the apocalypse happens, I'm good to go.
That's like, me too.
Like the apocalypse happens and then DVD players break. It's like, no.
No such
That's thing. Like that Twilight Zone episode.
As long as I got electricity, I'm good to go. That's all I need.
Backup DVD player.
I'll go buy a bunch of. I got enough Blu-ray players and stuff that
I know. Me too. It's much like Serial at Midnight says. Even though I don't have as big as collection as him or you, Tom, if I never have to buy anything else, and if they stop making physical media or something goes down, I'm good to go.
Mine's obnoxiously big.
I got tons of movies where I will never be able to watch everything over again twice. So.
Too many things that have been made. I assume even like between the 1800s and now, I mean, they pumped out a lot of movies back in those days, right? I mean, I guess relatively, right? Like a lot of people reference popular films from like the 40s and 30s and stuff, right? But
yeah.
I assume there's a lot of other films that are like, probably. In
I was going to say, you'd be surprised how many movies are lost to time, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I assumed that most before the 40s are lost. That's what I assume.
Oh, you're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong.
They didn't take quite care of the silent era films and stuff. They kind of lost a lot of those films.
They probably thought that films were just like a novelty. They're like, it's a whatever thing.
Yeah.
It's fun sometimes. Mm-hmm. And later, it became more important as the years went by, I assume. And they're like, oh, shit, we got to preserve these things. These things are good.
Yeah, speaking of Lon Chaney, his dad, Lon Chaney Sr., one of his most famous movies is lost forever, as far as we know. Was it the Phantom of the Opera version that he did? Or,
no. It's London After Dark or something.
Yeah, London After Dark. Yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's one of the most famous like monster movies, and it's silent monster movies, and it's lost. We'll probably never see it ever again. Yeah, London After Dark.
That's Lord knows what was lost in that Universal fire. Yet we still don't know the extent of that.
Yeah.
London After Midnight.
London After Midnight. Yes.
But yeah, no, I'm trying to rival Robert Meyer Burnett and Serial at Midnight and stuff in my collection for some dumb reason.
If you were to give an assumption on how many films that you own, how much would you guess?
Oh, I have a good idea.
And not counting TV
You want to take a guess?
I want to say 5,000.
Probably close, because I don't know without TV shows, but like I've come to learn quickly that there's a lot of these that I don't have in my collection, or my collection is not scanned in completely yet, and this doesn't count doubles, and it counts sets, I think, is one. But I probably have at least close to that. I don't know. I got a lot.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Well, here's your movies. Let's see here. Oh, okay, that's a different thing altogether.
That's insane.
Yeah, this is just some of them.
You're not kidding. When you'll be good. You'll have plenty.
Here's a printer-friendly version.
Have you seen all the movies that you have, or
no?
are some still unturned?
Tons of them I haven't watched. That's what I'm saying. Like, if shit were to hit the fan, as long as I got electricity, there's a lot of stuff I haven't watched yet.
Yeah.
That's tight.
But
I'm pretty good
to handle all the stuff, man.
Blu-ray.com. That's all you need.
Blu-ray secretary.
And as I said, I come to learn every once in a while. I don't have everything in here either yet. Like, I find stuff that, well, some of these I've gotten rid of or lost too. But usually I try to keep up with it as much as possible. So
that's crazy.
I'm good. I just buy what I know. What I like.
Like, this is weird here. Like, it doesn't have the 4K listed for some reason, or it's got it listed as a Blu-ray, which is weird. Or no, just as Blu-ray and Blu-ray. That's weird. Yeah, they must list 4K as just another Blu-ray. Looks like, gotta be. Yeah.
Well,
we're just in the bees.
Yeah, we went through some of this one day when he was showing pictures. Lord. We was just like, "Oh yeah, that movie. Oh yeah, that movie." And I have I have that one. I would say I'm probably close. I don't know how many I have. I know it's over at least 3,000, maybe 4,000. But that's also with my VHS
sales. That's one of the big ones that gets me every time, and their prices are so cheap that you just keep loading them up, and you're like, before you know it, like, how the fuck did I order $300 worth of fucking movies?
Yeah.
When I first got a job and I went in like Walmart or somewhere, it's like, oh, there's like always all these movie packs, or buy one get, or like buy 3 get 2 free or something, like deals like that. So I just bought random movies, and at one point I was like, I didn't watch it in half these films. Still have their discs, but I got rid of some of their cases because I needed shelf space. But the ones that are better, which I know is blasphemy. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
No, I understand. I mean, limited shelf space I can understand because, yeah.
It's like it's the type of thing where it's almost depressing, where it's like, gosh, there's all these films on here that I purchased that are taking up space that I want to replace with like films that I like.
Well, and that's where I've had to downsize some of my things, just get rid of doubles and stuff, even though I don't always necessarily want to. But
right. Have you guys ever seen the movie? So, as little films as I've seen, I have been watching things lately, quite a few things, and I've come across a couple of very odd ones that I haven't heard anybody talk about before. Have you guys seen Oblivion 1 or 2 from the mid-90s?
I think I've heard of them, but I don't.
It's like a weird space western, corny film.
Yeah, vaguely. For some reason, it sounds familiar, but I don't.
It's got the chick from Mortal Kombat Annihilation that's like, "You shall die." She's in it as a chick called Lash, and I don't know. It's this weird little movie that's like, God, I don't like it, but I like it. It's.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Sounds like something would be a Full Moon movie or something like that.
Yeah, usually I'm in the know on movies
like that. Yeah.
Maybe it was a weird one. Like I said, I recommend the first one. I don't recommend the second one. It seems more mundane, but I don't know. It's one that I've seen that I don't think I've heard anybody ever talk about before.
I don't think I've heard of him. And
it's like, red eye, and he's like a lizard, and it's just so corny. They have George Takei's in it as like some drunk doctor or something. He's not really important in it.
And I'm usually the guy that brings up movies like that.
Yes, that's why I'm probably going to buy the Oblivion disc, but I don't know if I should get the second one because I don't really like it. But I do like to shit on it a little. I'm making videos on them soon. But like I've seen that. Go ahead and do your super chat. Yep.
Okay. It says I also forgot to mention I got RLM Space Cop 2. Awesome.
Do they have a second one?
Tommy reviews.
Well, I know they made a second one.
Of what?
You said Red Letter Media's Space. Oh no! 2. I'm sorry.
I thought
you said like the sequel.
No, he's like also. He got it also.
Also, okay. They're saying like the second one.
Yeah. I'll give him a little something.
I have to return some videotapes.
Oh, bros, that's another film I saw recently. I saw American Psycho finally. I saw it. Yes.
Finally, huh? It's a good
saw
movie.
that. I saw Dragged Across Concrete. I saw Prisoners. I saw Bullet Train, Tenet, RRR, Showdown in Little Tokyo, Hell or High Water. And I finished Game of Thrones. I watched all of The Last of Us, the Scream movies, of course. I've been a busy boy. I am.
You've watched a few. You're turning into a little runner.
I am growing. I promise. And I rewatched the Planet of the Apes, all of them, from the OGs, the Tim Burton, and the reboot one. All of them are freaking good in a way. Like some are better than others, of course, but I don't think any of them are bad.
I love the original Planet of the Apes movies. They're awesome. But
speaking within a year of each other.
Yeah, they're churned them out quick. What do you have a final pick to show before we?
Yes, I do. Last year I took it upon myself to watch quite a few movies. I do recommend one as well, which I checked out, didn't really like, but that's okay. There's a couple, some hits and misses. I liked Don't Breathe.
Where were you? You are definitely
you are a runner too.
Yes, you are.
Runner Junior. Wait, we just talked about this last
we did.
week.
Runner brought both of them, part 1 and 2.
I didn't see last week.
And we gripe on this movie. We're like, all those kids deserve to die.
Every one of them fucking deserved to get
disagree,
it.
But I liked the so I watched The Quiet Place 1 and 2 and this like pretty much back to back with those. So it was a different pace.
Which is ironic because that was the movie I got him confused with at first. I'm like, wait, this is the one with what's his face blind. Yeah,
I don't blame you for that. And I actually have a lot of criticisms on The Quiet Place 1 and 2, but I thought that they were still pretty good overall. With Don't Breathe, I don't know. Like I liked it. I like how small it was. It's in a small location. Again, for me, I guess this was a different flavor to go with. And the guy's blind, so there's that, but he's like a super locked up house, and then they're trying to steal some shit to get out of town, which that's already messed up. They're not morally in the right at all here. He's got the right to defend his freaking property right here, and but then it's like he's also not a totally innocent guy either, though. Got a chick in the basement, but she like killed his wife and a kid, I think, was with that, and he's like, I want another baby. He's not in the right for anything he's doing. Like this is all like a moral freaking weird hodgepodge there.
I gotta ask.
That's part of what
I gotta ask this just to see. Do you know what a turkey baster is?
That's supposed to be for like taking guts out of a turkey or something, or temperatures, liquid.
He's a runner.
He had semen in that one. I know that.
Yeah, he had one of those.
Yes.
The turkey baster scene is what everybody talks about.
That's like the most minuscule parts of the scene to me, or the movie to me. But I mean, all right. Like, he in his own way, he's trying to justify. I'm not gonna, force myself on you. I'll just force you to have my baby without this in there. I don't know. I found it to be interesting concept for a film with it. When she even almost gets away, it's like, it's just enough for the dog to go after her, and after getting beat the crap out of and whatnot. I don't know. I thought it was interesting for what it was. Saw it last year. It was, out of the movies that I watched, most of them were pretty bad last year. This was, I feel like this one and the Quiet Place ones were like a better variety. So maybe that's part of where it was. What gripes do you guys have with it?
I haven't seen the Quiet Places yet. I have them, but I haven't watched them. But the Don't Breathe, I thought was weird because it's like these guys are breaking into this blind dude's house. They deserve to die, and then they try everything they can to try and make this guy a bad guy in some way, up to and including that weird insemination scene and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't really stick with me. It wasn't a movie that I ever really wanted to see again. And if there's a sequel, it's news to. I didn't even.
There is a sequel to.
Yeah, I know we were talking about it last week.
Sequel doesn't sound interesting to me at all with the concept, but one I thought was okay because to me there wasn't any good guys in it. Really, it was people doing bad things and stuff's happening to them, but it's like high tense situations, I suppose, with it. I don't know.
You got to be honest. When we told Runner we weren't really fans, and he was so upset because he had both of them and he loved them so much, and he was ready to talk about them.
Well, that's fine because I don't know.
Crushed his soul.
Yeah, we crushed him.
My soul shall remain uncrushed. That's okay. I didn't like Night of the Demons. You know.
No, that's fine.
He was crying.
Yeah, and again, this isn't one of my favorites, but as far as like DVD, I need to buy more films that I like still. I was able to watch, like, what I do now is that, especially when I watch films for the first time, and if there's not a streaming thing that has them, I do like to rent them for like $2 or $3, see if I like them or not. And if I really like them, then I'll buy them on DVD or Blu-ray, you know?
Yeah.
Essentially. That's my format now.
Well, it makes more sense.
Hey, you got a bit of a compliment. Runner's a bit more naive, or sounds a bit more than Rookie.
Possibly, I don't know. I'm more. I guess I'm confident on my stance with it. I think that it did all right with the claustrophobia. It's a small type of movie with it. Maybe if they're trying to frame it like these kids are the good guys, I didn't necessarily see it that way. Like, so he's clearly misusing like his dad's alarm systems to break into people's houses and shit, which is like, oh, fuck you guys. But I don't know. I'm okay with watching films where we follow the protagonists that aren't good guys sometimes and see what happens to them. To me, I was like, ha, you got shot in the face, dipshit. Like, in a way, I don't know.
I'm with you, Sean. I'm with you.
Well, that's what's interesting. So I know that we're probably about to end the show here, but do you guys have time for maybe a question to expand on for a few minutes? That might it relates to the physical media and streaming stuff, essentially. So if you, because I know that you've said that streaming could have some qualities that could be good, right?
I find some, I mean, I've made no bones about it. I'm a physical media person. I've said to cancel your streaming services, and by that I specifically mean like Disney and Netflix and stuff.
It does have its.
It does have some benefits to it, though.
Yeah. It's like for me, for example, like I can't afford to buy everything that I see for the first time. So if I see them on Netflix and I like them, then I'll buy it, and so that's good. But I want to ask you both: if you could have a combination of like the perfect mutual relationship between physical media and streaming, what would that maybe look like? Like if it wasn't using streaming services as they are, but if they were to do it in a way that complements each other. Well, is there a way that could work?
What I can come up with is probably the best answer to that. Is it's a kind of an slightly expensive way of doing it, but if you can get yourself set up correctly, because it saves on time, space, and all that kind of business as far as, and that is just having like your own digital home setup system with a couple terabytes hard drives with all your movies on them, scanned in lossless quality. And then you can go put your other movies in storage or sell them or whatever afterwards. Do whatever you wish with them. But if you do sell them or get rid of them, I would suggest backing your backups with backups, just because that kind of stuff can happen. You don't know what can happen. But yeah, like that's kind of I can't remember what they're called, but like it's like basically like a home network you set up at home, and you just scan all your movies in, basically. Like literally put them in a computer and pull the files off.
So that you have the physical copy and a digital copy, essentially.
Basically, your own digital copy that you've made, but it's your own digital library, and you can actually set it up. I think it's called a Kodi or something like that. And you can set it up to where like it even looks like a streaming services and all that kind of business. That's what like Andre and a few other people do to save on space and stuff because he doesn't have the room for all the Blu-rays and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good night, Brian Barth. Have a good one. Thank you for hanging with us. Me personally, yeah, if you want to do that I'm good with the physical
but
media.
I like the physical aspect of it. I like the library aspect of it.
Yeah. That's what I like. It takes me back to like the video store, the library stuff. Like my things with streaming is I haven't really watched a whole lot of them, so I don't really find them that good, other than like I do enjoy, like I've talked, Tom, Full Moon, Shudder, and I just watched, like I said, I just watched the Nightmares, Hollywood Dreams, and Nightmares of Robert Englund story, and that's only available right now on streaming on Screambox.
That's on Screambox,
yeah. So that's a benefit to me because I wanted to see that documentary. So I just watched there, and then I know I will buy that documentary on Blu-ray when it comes out.
Well, I mean, I guess. Or go ahead.
I'd say my biggest gripes with streaming are, number one, quality.
Yes.
It varies. And depending what you have to use to watch it with, your internet, all that kind of stuff is a variable in that. You know, I mean, if you're somebody who just has like a little 32-inch TV that you're, you know, in a dorm room or what have you, then whatever, you're going to be happy with whatever you can get, and that's fine, and it's going to look pretty good no matter what you're watching, especially if you got like a Roku stick or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the other problem is selection. I'm sure all of us have, you know, you've gotten that, I want to watch this movie, and you go to look on every one of your streaming services and not a single one has it.
Yeah.
And it just becomes all of a sudden impossible to find this movie. Everybody runs into it at least a couple times, probably a month, let alone, you know, in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it too. So yeah, those are my two main gripes. And then the third one is probably the most important one. And that is that, especially if you're somebody who buys digital films, which I do from time to time, because there's movies available in HD on streaming that are only available on DVD. So sometimes if I want an upgrade in the picture, I'll get the HD version on streaming, but they could take it away at any time. Or as we learned earlier with French Connection, edit it at any time they want.
Yep.
And a lot of those are not set up in a way you can actually download those movies, especially in the original quality. So yeah.
I gotcha. I mean, I guess another element to it is like, you guys were both born like pre-80s, right? Or Greg, you were born in the 80s? I forget. Like how
yes, I was born in the 80s. Yes,
forget how old you are. Exactly.
Greg and I are pretty close in age.
I'm 40 years old.
You seem younger, but you also can you talk as if you've been around a long time. So
I'm 40 years old. So
well, it's like, so I was born in the mid 90s, and it's like I feel like I was born in the in between era of things where it's like things where I have the taste of some older stuff, and then also experiencing the newer stuff like as it's coming about. So like with streaming, like I wouldn't have watched a lot of films if it wasn't for streaming. If they didn't have that option, like how would a lot of people maybe find movies that are older, especially
you used to have a video store.
Yeah, the video store. Yep.
Well, yeah, but I guess, I mean, it's hard to say how the world would be if there's like a lot of
Netflix had
around
it
still.
Yeah, I was doing it by mail for a while there too. I mean, it's like you grew up in the DVD era. See, we grew up in the VHS boom, and the DVD era was even more juicier than the VHS boom because we got stuff in the DVD era and quality and you know, just amount of care given to it, and the fact that they would, you know, carry them in a lot of bigger block video stores like Blockbuster and Movie Gallery and stuff most of the time. So like that was one thing. The Movie Gallery I worked with had a great DVD selection. Like almost any movie you could think of, we had it. So, you know, that was the beauty of back then. But I mean, again, you got to get off your butt, go out to these places, and I get it. You know,
I mean, I guess that's what I was referring to, is that because people have gotten lazier. I mean, I assume there's a lot of elements that play with that isn't just streaming that made people lazy.
Oh yeah, no, the price is a factor.
Like,
I mean, you know, even back then until, you know, later down the road, most DVDs were $20-$30 when they first started out. Same thing with Blu-rays, and 4Ks are still $20-$30 or more.
Yeah.
Even your standard Blu-ray and DVD for a brand new movie will cost $15 to $20 at least. In most cases, at least $20 or more. So yeah, you know, I mean, it's not a cheap thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. I can understand streaming being very convenient, especially with a lot of the newer movies as quickly as they're coming to streaming and shit nowadays. It's like, it's a no-brainer. I catch myself often being like, I don't want to wait another month for the Blu-ray. I'll just buy it now on streaming. And then generally I'll end up putting off getting the Blu-ray unless there's a, you know, a steelbook or something, because I'm a collector, but that's it. Yeah.
I guess like with that, what I meant, like, you know, of course you can go to the video store to find movies, but I mean, a lot of people discover things because it gets put in their face on their phone or on their TV or something.
Well, there was various ways that would happen. You'd get to either see like a preview before another movie, or it was a movie you remember seeing a trailer for, but you never quite.
Well, I mean, like if a new movie, like how would I like to watch an older film, like, you know, like,
it's like I just said, you
like American Psycho, like that wouldn't be in a trailer for a current
movie. Well, if you rented an older movie that you did know, for instance, from that era, maybe you would see that trailer on it
Yeah.
and be like, oh, well, maybe I should check that out. There was that, or, movies were shown a lot more on television,
Yeah.
and cable. That was
It's like,
basically kind of like the equivalent of streaming back then. Was you had
yeah.
HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, all those, and they would show a movie at nausea for a month and then switch to a couple other movies.
Yeah.
So-
we grew up in this very era, like Tom mentioned, like we had the video store, we had late night cable, we had like shows like I like to talk about a lot. We had shows like Monster Vision or Dinner and a Movie where they would play these movies repeatedly, and we could go out and we would see trailers, we'd go to the theaters. That's what, and that I try to cultivate that with my physical media collection.
Even the early years of video, if a movie was popular enough, they would re-release it a lot in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of it is, just to kind of answer your question as far as like discovery, that's just it. You'd stumble upon it, you hear about it from a friend. The other thing is it wasn't as hard to keep up with most releases back then because you didn't have nearly as many movies getting released every year as we do now. Like the average studio would release 12 to 15 movies a year as opposed to 24 to fucking plus movies.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was down to 12 again to give me time to catch up on older things and new things at the same time.
And not only that, movies weren't released the same way back then. There was only bigger movies were generally released all at once everywhere. In fact, the first movie to ever do that was The Godfather.
You mean like in theaters everywhere? Or you
all
mean
at once everywhere? Yeah, because otherwise they were rolled out in like by cities.
Yeah, they would do blocks.
And regions. Yeah.
Like,
so they would start in California and New York and work their way into the Midwest, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago would sometimes get earlier screenings in Milwaukee, but not often.
I mean, I like the idea of like theaters playing more older films here and there in a rotation. That'd be
the movies would last longer that way too, because a movie's lifespan was 6 months to a year in some cases or more. And that was before we'd even have a chance to even think about going on cable or video, and then that got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter over the years.
Yeah, now a movie's releasing in theaters, and then not even a month later you can go buy it on digital.
Well, that kind of almost brings to another question. I know, I'm sorry if I'm dragging this out longer for you guys, but like, I mean, like I've heard like Chris Gore talk about this kind of stuff recently about like movie length and stuff, being over 2 hours, and I understand that as well. And then there's streaming, and when they try to make movies and shows for streaming, but it's like, should the goal for films or like filmmakers to make a film for the theater or for when you take it home? Because it's only in the theater for the least amount of time compared to when you own it, right? And I guess that's where like I've been confused.
Three different eras of that, really, Rook, or actually kind of like four. Because when movies first started, they would basically have their first run, and unless they were like a Gone with the Wind or a Wizard of Oz or something like that had evergreen value, that's where a lot of those movies we were talking about earlier that just kind of got lost to time. Some of them were revived with television because television needed stuff to show, so they would buy the old movies, and so a lot of people fell in love with those. In fact, you had movies like Night of the Living Dead and It's a Wonderful Life that are so well beloved today, mainly because they fell into the public domain for whatever reason it was, because of the copyright. So smaller television stations would show them all the time. So it was just one of those things where, especially back then, that's the other thing I think kids nowadays, I mean, you kind of understand it because you grew up in the 90s, but I still don't think even somebody growing up in the 90s could grasp only having like 3 channels. Only having like a handful of channels to watch.
My dad's house had like a few channels, and then I had a little more.
Unless you grew up in the country, then I could understand. Yeah, if you had an antenna and you know what that's kind of like, then that's kind of the closest. Then you could understand what it was kind of like growing up back then, because even HBO and Cinemax, if you were lucky enough to have those kind of things in your area, right, even those were a luxury, because they were $12, $15, $20 a month back then. And you got to go with inflation. That's almost like $150 to $100 nowadays. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we bitch about the price of streaming services. We really don't have a room to bitch, because when video finally came along, because that was the thing. So a lot of that stuff got lost, and then videotape came along with, they tried different ways of trying to bring movies home. HBO and home video started right around the same time. And HBO was this first time idea where you could actually watch movies at home that were uncut, no commercials, because that was the only other way you could see a movie before that. Again, is unless you caught a revival once in a while, which did happen more often back then. So don't get me wrong; it wasn't like bigger movies that were well known. Like I said, the more evergreen films would get re-released quite more often. They would get shown on television, and that was a big deal because like CBS would have the network premiere of whatever big movie was, or Psycho, and then the thing is they would go around and like, even at that time when Psycho showed on television, they re-released it in theaters not shortly thereafter, and with Hitchcock even saying in the trailers, "See what they didn't dare show you in the TV."
Yeah.
And it would be, and then the other side of that, where sometimes you get these other guys that would do like get smart, and they would cram a bunch of scenes back into the movie that got cut out and drag the movie out for 2 nights. So they get basically twice the money for it. And these were lucrative deals for the studios at the time. So for instance, King Kong 1976 showed over 2 nights. Superman the movie showed over 2 nights.
How long were those films typically?
They were like 220 or whatever in the theaters, but then when they would do the extended cuts on television, they would run about 3 hours, because a 90-minute block is 2 hours of television back then.
Right.
So like a 90-minute movie would fit perfectly into 2 hours. And that's the thing, and that was kind of what I was getting to, is running time was dictated largely by a film costs more money the longer it is. Period. And if you're doing film prints, the more prints you got to do, the more it's going to cost if that film's longer. So they kind of had this thing in Hollywood where family films clocked in about 70 minutes at tops, 80 minutes if you're really pushing it. Disney got a little bit, with their live action movies, they get a little over that. But like an animated film, you'd never see over 60, 70 some minutes. You know what I'm saying? Comedies always clocked in under 90 minutes.
Yeah, those I'd say that's about perfect.
Action, mystery, thrillers always clocked in around 90 to an hour 45, 2 hours if it was a real, dramatic piece. But very rarely would you have your Gone with the Winds, right? That is a very rare thing. Even Coppola had to fight tooth and nail to get Godfather released in a 3-hour version. Because the studios back then didn't want to do that. Didn't want to release those longer movies. Sorry.
Yeah, going with that, I mean, do you think that even nowadays there should be more of a restriction on longer films that are like over 2.5 hours? Like,
yeah, unless you're a trusted person, yes.
Like to have it really be like, is the value worth it being this long? Can you get the main course of your story done without it being this long? And then in a way, does that add value to the physical copy where, well, there is technically more, and if you want to see more of it, you have the whole main story here in the theater, but here's the extended. I mean, I look at Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's kind of what they did, is they took that idea of putting the longer version on TV into the unrated and director's cuts on home video. Is what happened down the road. Yeah,
because like after I realized that the theatrical versions of the Lord of the Rings, they had extendeds. I only saw the extended versions within the last couple of years, guys. Like I can't go back to watch the original like theater version. I have to see the really long versions because they're really good. Like
and that's another rarity though, Rook, is if you'll start learning as over time, if you start watching like the theatrical cut and watching the director's cut of a lot of movies, outside of a few rare exceptions, 9 times out of 10, there's a reason that shit was cut out.
Well, I thought Dodgeball pictures are extended cut a little bit. They only have like a few extra scenes and moments.
And that comes from the unrated era.
The extended version is dumber to me because it was like showing scenes that weren't as funny when they were like, if they're cut, it makes some scenes funnier. But you have them
you had them actually doing that on purpose, Rook, at that time. See, that was the thing. Prior to that, you would shoot a movie. You would sit down in the editing bay. They always say you make a movie 3 times in the writing process, the shoot it, and then you edit it. That's the 3 times you make the movie. And each time it's like a different movie. Because once you get to the editing bay, what you thought was the most important scene in the script might be the least important scene by the time you get to the editing side of things.
I got you.
So like when but in the 2000s, like Fox, the reason you had unrated of every one of these movies back then, Fox mandated that. Because it was a way of selling extra DVDs.
Yeah. And there would only be like 2 or 4 minutes long, extra long minutes.
Yeah, it was on purpose. And it was like, okay, do your R-rated cut, but just remember when we go to theaters, it's going to be PG-13.
Sort of. Like that. Oh, man.
Because they get more views with PG-13 than you get the kids in. So
a few rare exceptions.
They get collectors that want every version, right? Or something.
Well, right. And I don't mind having a bunch of different versions of a movie. I love it. But my main issue is don't make that the only version available.
Exactly, and that's what they do with streaming. That's what they do with streaming.
George Lucas made it where you can only get the newest version. And yeah, I bought the DVDs, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" This was the first time I experienced what you guys did for many years, I assume. Where I'm like, "Why the hell is he going? No, yeah."
We were born in the age of the original special editions, my man.
Yeah. I remember seeing A New Hope, the special edition in the theaters. So I was like, what?
Look, we would have said worse things about them when they first came out, but we were just happy to get to see them on the big screen for the first time in like 10 years.
Yeah.
It had less things at the time, so getting anything was good enough at the time.
Right? We didn't we had no, here's the thing, Rookie, we had no idea what George was up to at that time.
Right.
We just thought this was part of that gimmick, because this wasn't the first time we'd had a special edition released in theaters, and it definitely wasn't the last time, considering how big it was. What he didn't tell us in the fine print, even though he said it, we didn't pay attention to it. He said one last time. And what he meant by that one last time on video,
the start of many,
that was it. This is the last time you're going to get your hands on these.
Oh.
After this, we're done. They're all special. The special edition is the only version you're getting from here on out. We didn't realize at that time that was what he was doing.
Yeah. It seems so cold, because it's like...
It is.
Like, you're just mentioning the films that we have lost, and it's like, these are intentionally being, like, kept away or something.
My biggest gripe is Star Wars is one thing. That's his movie. I can't say shit. He's the director, right? I don't agree with it. But what the fuck is he doing touching Empire and Jedi? I don't care if he's the producer. I don't care if he's technically the owner. You did not direct those movies. And I'm sure that neither one of those directors, if the director, Marquand, would have been alive at the time that he'd done that, he probably wouldn't have approved. And I don't think, what's-his-face was too happy about it either, Kirshner. Yeah. But Empire and Jedi, he should have kept his hands off of. And there's no excuse. You had the money and shit to do what you pretty much wanted for those. So basically what you're doing now with those is just because you want to, right? And it kind of takes away from the idea of, well, I'm doing this now because I didn't have the technology to do it that time.
That almost feels like when they try to make like a new movie every now and then to try to keep rights or something. But
yes, very much. Well, and as we learned over time, there's more nefarious probable reasons for it that I'm not going to get into.
And I think I've heard you talk about some of that before.
Yeah.
Life and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope that answered some of your questions there, Rook.
Oh yeah, big time. Glad to talk to you guys with that stuff. Stuff's been on my mind a little bit lately with some of this.
You should make videos on it. I tell you.
I try to. I'm working on a lot of different stuff at the moment. I'm working on the next short film I'm doing, The Fat Speedster.
What's sad about us is the funny thing is when you think back on it, and we had things a lot worse kind of in some ways than we do now, but yet we gripe them out now and we're a bit more pedantic than we used to be. But my main excuse is this. We're at a point now where for 99% of this stuff, this is the last version we're going to get, right? This is the last time they're going to master this stuff again, because from here, there's nowhere else to go, right? 4K is about as far as you can go with most of this stuff. We're at a point where you can't do anything else with the sound unless you're going to convert it into VR.
It's hard to improve the quality of a physical disc.
Exactly. At this point, we have reached the end of the road with a lot of this stuff, so that's never going to go get revisited again. Unlikely anyway, unless it's some major release.
I feel like with the amount of fans there are, with the amount of generations there are to films, that like so many people have kept them alive prior to the internet, even, right? Like I would think that it would still be viable to touch on. I mean, and
to answer your question from earlier too, Rook, was like we grew up in the video era where that was much different than before. To go off of what we're saying is like a lot of movies would get lost, but we would remember those movies because we would rent the obscure movies and stuff like that, and we would pass them on to our friends and our family and so on and so forth. So that's a lot of times how word of mouth was the biggest way you would learn about movies prior to the internet, basically. Like the internet added a whole new layer to it as far as before even streaming, because you had the ability to learn more about what it was you were watching, or, oh, I like this movie. It's directed by this guy. Oh, well, look up and, oh shit, he's got a bunch of movies. And you didn't have to go to the library and check out 5 books to get all the same information. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that did change things. But prior to that, like our own circles and stuff was kind of like the main way of, and we used to even have before legal video, there was video sharing clubs and stuff like that. Like the film community has always been one of sharing things big time, even more so than probably any other community out there, to where it's like, that's the way most people find out about movies back then. It's like, oh, you haven't seen this yet? Here, check this out. Or check that out. I'll know you love it because you've seen that, kind of thing. And that's how we kind of learned about a lot of these obscure titles that you were referring to earlier. Like a great example is I introduced probably half of the Midwest to Clerks vicariously, and I'm not even joking. And that is because when that movie came out around the same time as Friday, and I had happened to watch them, and I was like the only guy in my area that was into that nerdy, weird shit. And I had a party one weekend when my parents were gone, and my buddy invited like everybody and anybody over, and all weekend we had Friday and Clerks on loop. We're just watching them over and over and over and over and over. So I introduced I don't know how many fucking people to Clerks over that weekend. Most people had recognized Friday. They knew what Friday was.
The Genghis Khan of Clerks.
And I'm not saying I'm like totally responsible for all of it, but I mean, just stop to think of how many people that I turned on to that movie back when nobody knew who the fuck Kevin Smith was, or any of the idea of watching a black and white brand new movie. What the hell is that?
Right.
And it's like getting them through that first 10 minutes was rough. But once you get past 37 is the key. Just get to 37 and then people are on board, because then they realize, oh, okay, I don't give a shit about what color it is now. This is definitely new.
Yes.
Yep. But let's get to this final super chat, and then we'll shut it down. From Bronson Wright Wolf for $5, he says, "I like Michael J. Fox as Stuart Little. Other than Back to the Future, what is your favorite Michael J. Fox movie?"
Well, that's a tough damn question.
It is.
And I just watched his documentary like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, still.
His docu-film or whatever you want to call it. It is kind of weird. Oh, you're going to get a trip out of it. It's weird. But it's good. Shit. Rook, what's your favorites other than Back to the Future?
So he mentioned Stuart Little. That's the only, other than that, and Teen Wolf, that's like the only. Well, no, I'm saying those are like the only few that I can think of that
Runner, where are you?
Like, okay, what is Michael J. Fox in that I have
it'll be hard, but I'll give you like my top 3 other ones that I like. I can't really decide. I will say like Teen Wolf.
Yep.
Doc Hollywood.
Oh, yep.
And I will say, what's the one with James Woods? I just had it in my
The Hard Way. That would be my choices too.
That's probably like my top 3 outside
probably
of Back to the
follow up,
Future.
since those would be the same ones for me. I'll throw in Greedy.
Mm-hmm.
Secret of My Success. Although that's like a guilty.
Oh yeah, I
bad
forgot about that one. Yeah.
You almost got to find one of his serious ones. God, trying to think.
His
For
War
Love or
movie
Money
with
is
Sean
really
Penn.
good. Yeah, Casualties of War is okay. Because Michael J. Fox is one of my favorites growing up too. So
Yeah,
you had to put
me
me on
too.
the spot here. Shit. I've always, even though he's not the star in it, I do love his turn in The American President.
Yeah,
He's
that's not
really
a bad
good
movie.
in that.
Yeah.
Frighteners, of course, Duck Nation. Thank you. Duh.
Yes, Frighteners. I know, Runner. You want
That's
the link,
against
but
his
we're closing
character.
out.
Yeah, it's against his normal type of role too in the Frighteners.
Yeah, the Frighteners.
There you go. That's the best answers we
Yeah,
can
that's pretty good.
Get.
Pretty good.
He's
Thank you
good
for
in
that.
everything, though. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing. Thank you once again, Bronson, for that $5 super chat, and I will give you. I still like playing this one.
Chucha.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Great.
Runner. I know you want the link. I know you want to talk. You're chopping at the bits to talk, but we've been going for almost.
Says he's with Brad.
Yeah, because Brad told me to send him the link.
Oh, I thought he was hanging out with Brad.
No, he just got home and he wants the link. And I'm like, I know you do, bro, and I want to talk to you, but it's almost 3 hours and it's getting late, and I am going to have to get to bed.
I
And
have the runner now.
I need some dinner.
Yeah, so but Runner, I promise we'll get you back on here next week, and maybe Rook will
try and watch a bunch
something.
of movies so you can bring on a bunch of movies.
Yeah. But thank you, Rookie, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tom, for always being here. Runner, I promise we'll get to you. I know you really want to talk. I know, man. I know how that is.
I brought up your movies, apparently. Don't breathe.
For what it's worth, Rook made me miss you, brother.
You're welcome. That's
I love you, Rookie, but
yeah,
we've been here already. This is like Runner Junior. No, but it's fun hanging out with you again, man.
Yeah,
it's good, man.
It's nice to have you on. But thank you to everybody in the chat, always sticking with us. We had 40 people watching us at one point in time. It hasn't had that many in quite some time, so I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, watching. Once again, as always, you guys don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
How you doing? Bitches leave.